it up, Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the Republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, Russia, Russian, 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 the Russians. Russian.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
All right, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Devolution Power Hour for Saturday night. John got hornswoggled by
dead.
the airlines. He's dead?
He could be.
That's
we don't know for
not
sure.
True. That's not true.
Yeah,
You can't say it.
I'd feel bad about that. Yeah.
Nah, he's flying on an aeroplane right now. They destroyed his schedule, so he's going to be joining us a little late. And in John's place, we have Burning Bright and the ghost of based Patrick Henry. And yeah, I think we're gonna wing it. We're gonna have a good time. Everybody's feeling lively this evening. Ghost looks like he's gotten some nice healthy sun today.
Yeah, I was outside in the sun all day with my kids. I'm in the country at my in-laws' house. The last time, I don't know if it was the last time that we were on, but the three of us did DPH a while back, and John was hanging out with Cash at Mar-a-Lago. I think this time, I mean, my sources familiar with the situation have told me that he was kidnapped by maybe some sorority girls in Nashville. Whether or not we're going to pay the ransom is TBD. We're kind of having internal deliberations about it, but we will keep everyone abreast of the situation as my sources are keeping me abreast of the situation.
Yeah. I think we're just going to have to let him fight his way out.
Right. As long as they're unnamed sources close to the situation, I think we can pretty much take them at their word. And Nashville's a weird place. I've never been, but it's
Me neither.
I feel like it's it's like the woo girls capital of the world now. Like it's
it
where
is.
girls go to be like woo.
I mean, it's it's the number one bachelorette party destination in the country. So that would do it right there.
Don't bring your wives to that gar, boys. just saying.
I don't know if I've been
over.
to Nashville a few times. It's
all right.
It's
going to be like Uggs wearing. Yeah, it's probably not what we're going after.
Let's thank our show sponsors tonight and bring a word from them, and then we will get into the end of the operation. So first up, we have Love Litters. Attention, all you Badlanders with purring pals and feathered friends. Say hello to Love Litters. 100% pure, kiln-dried wood, free from chemicals, and oh so kind to Mother Earth. No dust, no mess, and no toxins. Just a lightweight solution that's gentle on your wallet and even gentler in your home. Our biodegradable litter is crafted from wood destined for landfills, giving it a new purpose in your pet's life. Cats love it. Our astonishing formula works like magic to neutralize that notorious cat urine odor, keeping your home pine fresh and welcoming. For bird lovers, it zaps moisture from bird droppings, crumbling them away, all while being safe if pecked at or ingested. For reptiles and critters too, our mix is crafted to dilute the pine scent, ensuring those little lungs stay happy and healthy. Plus, every 30-pound bag of love litters will last up to 6 months, saving you money. Transform your pet care routine today. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/litter. That's badlandsmedia.tv/litter, and breathe easy with a litter that loves your pet as much as you do. Or, close. It would be bananas if a cat litter loved your pet as much as you do.
I will say, as the rare dog guy who is also a cat guy, wood and walnut base litter is a total game changer.
Really?
Believer in it. Yep. Your house won't smell like ammonia. You won't feel like you have to get rid of the cat. It's a good.
That's the problem with getting a cat. Is
Exactly.
eventually you feel like you have to get rid of it. I'm just kidding. I grew up with cats. They're lovely animals. One more ad. This from Save Pulse. They are our show sponsor tonight, along with Love Litter. And at Save Pulse, we are dedicated to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, and hydroxychloroquine at unbeatable prices. Our streamlined ordering process makes it easy to stock up on health essentials. And now with exciting news about fenbendazole showing promise in cancer research, we are proud to offer this alongside our antibiotics and viral care meds. Don't wait. Prepare for any health scenario today. Get your supply and stay ahead of the curve with Save Pulse. Now save even more. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use the promo code SAVEHEALTH at checkout to get a 20% discount on orders over $100. Badlandsmedia.tv/meds, promo code SAVEHEALTH. And so with that, let's go ahead and get into it. You guys were here on Devolution Power Hour on Wednesday evening. And then on Thursday morning, we woke up to this amazing Truth Social post from Donald J. Trump. And this is about as devolution-y as anything could ever be. He said, the operation is over. The patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before. Make America great again. And I've been talking over the past, few months about this Liberation Day that Trump has kept hyping as an interesting date because it's the 5-year anniversary of that big week in 2020 when he put the Defense Production Act into effect. And it just so happens to be right where that big red arrow is pointing as Trump's last week in office on the chart that saved his life. And I just couldn't ignore that. And I think that this was in some way a signal that the invisible enemy is in its death throes. Let's hope. I don't know that that's true, but it seems like a shot across the bow to the global regime. And it seems, in my estimation, that the implementation of these tariffs, if they are implemented, regardless, it's a signal that that top-down system of control over the world economy is ending. Thoughts? Take it away.
You can go ahead, Gus.
Yeah, I completely agree. That post felt like pure signal. Very, very interesting use of language and words. And I mean, the freak out is very evident. I think you're seeing people are kind of just telling you who they are in terms of like high level influencers, I guess you'd say. I mean, I don't even know what words we use to describe these people at this point, but the freakouts are there. And I think some people are maybe a little surprised by some of the people who are freaking out about this stuff. But it's very evident to me that this is a very based situation. So I'm very confident and optimistic about it.
All right, cool. Well, hopefully we'll get into some of the influencer stuff later. Burning Bright.
Yeah, we can get into that stuff in a little while, but I think the way Trump laid it out, the way you laid it out, I often talk about the difference between, parsing actual events and narrative events. And, we talk about that quite a bit. This tariff deployment, the thing I find so interesting about it, it's hard to, maybe I won't be able to phrase this the right way, but I'll give it a shot. I think this is the type of deployment that pulls the future forward into the present in a way that many deployments do not do. And I guess by that, I mean, there's lots of things you can say. Narrative deployments are important. We all agree on that, right? But I think the fact that Trump and, as we'll discuss tonight, many figures around him have been projecting this deployment for a long time, one of the most interesting things to me about its actualization is that it seems like good, bad, everything in between, the battle space did not believe that Trump was going to deploy this when he said he was going to deploy it, despite saying that he was going to the whole time. And, we can get into how, as you laid out, Chris, like how much of this is actually going to be deployed versus narratively. This is why there is often no difference between actual and narrative. This is the perfect encapsulation of that, where the freak out of the establishment is occurring, as Ghost said on Wednesday night, pre-flop. They're, at a poker table. Nothing has actually been done yet. And yet the world is changing before our eyes instantly. The stock market is changing before our eyes. Global trade is reordering before our eyes. All of this is possible to play out over the coming months without actual tariffs needing to be implemented on basically anybody. And I think that what Trump is doing here, kind of on a macro lens, is he is deploying a narrative and planting a flag in the ground and saying to the regime and to just normies, this is the way it's going to be. Like, the world is going to shift back towards sovereignty. And we can do this the hard way, or we can do this the easy way. The hard way is an actual deployment. The easy way is we keep this narrative and you all get in line. And the way I look at it is both of those things have the same end result. And to your point, Chris, the regime is panicking in a way that would seem to suggest that this truly is really the ending of their power projection, right? Like soft power, economic power. They can't do anything about something like this. It's kind of fascinating to watch them react to it.
Yeah, I often talk on my show and on DPH about the global regime system of control. It relies on control over media, control over finance when it comes to economic warfare, currencies, etc., control over resources, control over trade routes, and then ultimately, at the end of the day, they have always had the American military to go around the world kicking ass wherever there is a country whose government is not aligning with the regime narrative. And they are losing that control system. And without the United States playing the critical role in every one of those elements, media, finance, resources, trade routes, and military, that's like the key cog in the system. And then the system begins to collapse. I don't know if you guys saw this a couple of days ago. I've been talking, I don't know if I've shared it with either of you, but about the collapse of the British Commonwealth. And I think we're getting these signs. Yeah. You know, the comedic actor in Ukraine went to visit the so-called king and he wore his sweatsuit, like all sense of prior decorum with the King of England, which is, you know, the global regime. He's kind of the monarch of the whole thing. All of that is going away. They've been publishing ridiculous pictures of him. And then this yesterday in Parade, and I'll just set this up and you guys can have a laugh at it. Latest King Charles sighting has his fans saying, "This feels like AI." And so this is a post from Reuters. And you've seen the picture now that already kind of gives it away a bit. But the caption says, "Britain's King Charles, together with the London Vegetable Orchestra, playing a nursery rhyme on a carrot on April 3rd. The orchestra comprises of professional musicians playing a wide range of music on instruments made entirely from vegetables. This is supposed to be the leader of the Commonwealth."
We aren't worthy of we aren't worthy of the timeline that we live in right now. This is like, we don't deserve this, but we should be soaking it all up. You know, the Badlanders have proven that they are excellent meme smiths out there. And here's what we need. We need, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who did they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. We need that remix with the King Charles playing the Orange Man's flute.
So, Chris, what was the date on this? Did you say it was April 3rd?
Yeah. So he played it 2 days ago. The date on that article was yesterday.
Okay. So it was about a week ago. Last weekend, I wrote an article called Reality Wars. And a lot of it was all about this economic decoupling and essentially just the idea that, as you often talk about, there's reality prime and then there's the false reality. There's many different layers to both, right? But certainly the economic realm is like really the layer. Really, it's really what the system is. It's what the source of all their power projection is. And one of the lines in that article was, if I wanted to sum up what Trump is doing right here in like game theory terms, he's not using a carrot or stick approach. He's using the carrot as a stick. That was I'm not saying that that's what King Charles is doing there. But
you could make the case that he's using the carrot as a stick there.
Yeah, and so the way the framing of that is to suggest that everybody who's analyzed any of this crap forever, economic stuff, you've heard carrot or stick, right? Going back to antiquity about negotiations, certainly a lot of the stuff Ghost researches of historical negotiations, carrot or stick, we all understand that. I think that the fascinating thing about this current game theory is that the U.S. consumer, the U.S. economy, as now normies are being educated, is what holds up all world economies, it turns out, or most world economies, certainly the globalist West. So we are the carrot. And it used to be that the U.S. would use that to entice deals into the country, right? Trump is using that in a proactive, warlike demeanor. So that's kind of where that framing came from, is saying he knows he's got the carrot, and the carrot is the stick now. He's using the American economy to punish the Western globalist hegemon. And I just, who knows like what all this is, but that King Charles thing, it's some sort of humiliation ritual. I totally agree with your reading on that. I'd like to hear more of what you've been talking about on your podcast of the British Commonwealth in general. But it absolutely feels like we get these little things, these little mimetic deployments as like signal setters of where the real war is at right now. And the choice to know where it's at is maybe people in this community.
Yeah, I continue thinking it's amazing. Ever since Trump went over there the first time, the pictures of him walking in front of the so-called queen, the weirdness about her death announcement, even though she had just approved of the new Prime Minister Liz Truss 2 days before this ridiculous photo shoot that they did. And then Liz Truss was out after like 6 weeks. The whole thing has been so strange for years. They just had like 350 Muslims in the palace for a Ramadan celebration. And, it's not about who's in there. It's just, that's not really how they used to portray the British monarchy. And it's just basically been one embarrassment after the next. He was in the hospital a week or so ago. The pictures, they posted a picture of King Charles with Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago that was just the worst looking thing imaginable. It just seems like a humiliation ritual. And that thing seems to be collapsing. And oh yeah, Trump just stuck the Declaration of Independence on the wall of the Oval Office, which I think is not something that we should take for granted. That's big signal as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, Ghost.
No, completely agree.
There we go. You're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, the British Commonwealth thing is fascinating. I think with everything happening all over the place, Canada, Greenland, those are both British Commonwealth territories. Guyana, that's one that's you've been talking about for a long time. You were very, very early on that. I think you were actually the one who brought that to my attention. I had no idea that Guyana was part of the British Commonwealth. And then just tracking that now, it just aligns perfectly with all the Maduro stuff that we've been speculating on. So the humiliation ritual was spot on. The AI thing is laugh out loud funny because that again aligned with everything being fake and the idea that we're watching like actual Hollywood productions. The dig that I happened to do on the Substack on the Badlands news brief, because that random Mars article, it was about like the CIA saying that like we were created by giants from Mars or something stupid like that. And in that article, in that article, it mentioned Mead. I think it is up in Maryland. And I went and dug on like what that is. And it turns out that there's like this entire journalism war like division where they train journalists, they train actors. They built the Army Corps of Engineers built like 180,000 square foot television studio like for the military to use. And it's like, what is the military doing with 180,000 square foot television studio? And that was in 2010. That was like a recent thing they built. And I don't know, man, like all of these little just nodes just kind of seem to line up with the more circumspect analysis that I think is performed. And it's that you've really like led the way on, Chris. And it's so fascinating to see line up, especially when I've been doing the show Breaking History with Matt Ehret for the past, whatever, year and a half. And Matt has been like educating me on like the British Empire and how pretty much we've been dealing with a zombified version of the British Empire this whole time. So it like all of these different avenues of education, I guess you'd say, of research rabbit holes, all kind of converging it's like an epiphany, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that they're kind of like the avatar of the British Crown banking system, and the U.S. then kind of took that role over at the end of World War II, through the Cold War, and through the last few decades. But yeah, I think that system's falling apart. And speaking of that, Burning Bright, did you want to add something else, or?
Well, a couple just little things on what Ghost said.
Okay.
Number one, that's the plot of the movie, the Ridley Scott movie Prometheus, by the way. That movie is fascinating. It's a terrible movie. It ruined the mythos of the Alien franchise. But from a InfoWars signal perspective, it has always felt to me like a massive signal as to what true believer retarded regime players believe to be human origins. They absolutely seem to believe that we were created by hyper intelligent and evil life. If you watch like the opening 2-3 minute scene of the movie Prometheus and think about the name of the movie Prometheus, and you come away from that extremely disturbed by what you're watching, it's essentially a giant alien that is humanoid with black eyes who very literally seeds human life on Earth as an experiment. So anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole, but it's really fascinating when you talk about some of the signal that gets dropped here. Other point, you mentioned Ehret. I'd had him on the narrative a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's interesting when we talk about narrative convergence and the storylines going on right now, that one of the nations that is undergoing the most obvious kind of humiliation ritual from a globalist perspective is Canada. And Canada is a proxy state of the regime. And as Ehret, a Canadian, talked about, it is very literally, not even in an InfoWar lens, a vassal state of the British Empire. Legally, currently, it is not a real country. It has never been a real country. So all of it happening at the same time, I think you're absolutely right to be focusing on some of this British Crown signal. And, you wonder, I guess I don't want to derail what you were going to say, Chris, but I just wonder in the back of our minds, if there's a reason, if there's an effectiveness in this kind of goofy narrative seeding and humiliation stuff on a normie basis, right? Like, are normies getting anything out of this, even on a subconscious basis?
Speaking of the Canada and Britain connection, I don't want to linger on this, but this is a really interesting article from the BBC a few weeks back, March 17th. King meets Carney in symbolic support for Canada. And it goes through how everything they're doing is optics oriented, like his Order of Canada pin and the tie he wore, and like symbolic displays. That's what the entire article is about, just the optics. Oh, look, it's this special tree, the red maple, just for the Canadians. That'll make them happy, and very regal and royal and all that. But let's get back to the end of the operation. Steve Bannon had an interesting take on it, and I've talked with you guys about this extensively, and everybody knows I love Steve Bannon. I feel like he is somewhere toward the source of the flow of the great information stream. And he's kind of front running narratives in general, understanding where this thing is going on a level that no one else doing public communications understands it. And so I always kind of see him as the biggest of big signals. And let's take just a couple of minutes. And I don't know, the first 2-3 minutes of this, I think, are just dead on.
A system that has been in place since the end of World War II, the post-war international rules-based order, set up with American institutions and paid for by American blood. The victory in World War II and us being the arsenal of democracy. The huge casualties, as we talk about, and I believe that this is really, we're going to bring, because Russia was exempted, and we're doing this rapprochement with Russia. We've gone to war with the CCP, really to free Lao Beijing. I think what you're seeing, folks, and what's going to play out the next couple of years, we're actually ending World War II. In World War II, although we had the unconditional surrender of the governments and the military of the fascists in Italy and the imperial Japanese in Tokyo and, of course, the Nazis in Berlin, it had kind of immediately got off track. And that's where we had the Cold War immediately with who'd been our biggest ally during the war, the Bolsheviks under Stalin. And that Cold War went all the way to 1989 at Tiananmen Square and the fall of the Berlin Wall. And then when the people in those two countries had had enough of it, and President Reagan, obviously the victory, pushing the evil empire, when they collapsed and cratered, we kicked into the elites in America had already set up a globalist system. This is why in 1974, we talked about Spencer Morrison yesterday, the first time we had a trade deficit, going off the gold standard, the Arab oil embargo. All of it happened in the early 70s, that whole decade. The globalists took over. And so instead of taking out the Chinese Communist Party, we emboldened them.
And so he continues on down that path. I'm wowed by this stuff because as far as I'm concerned, this entire project, a lot of people are focused on arrests, for instance. G Money, I think, is dead on accurate with the focus on the financial system. But I think the big complete picture is the breakdown of the top-down centralized control system that has been in place throughout our entire lives. And that's exactly what Bannon is describing. And I think that is the kill shot for the Death Star. I think that's exactly where we're going. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Ghost.
I 100% love Steve Bannon. I used to speculate that if anybody was Q, it was probably him. Like he would have been somebody who maybe would have thought that up, just because he thinks outside the box, and I feel like he has his finger on the pulse of things as well as anybody. So I'm right there with you when it comes to the opinion of Bannon. Yeah, I mean, it's the way he front runs things and the way he explains things. He does so in a way where he doesn't necessarily break the seal. He kind of leaves that for other people, but he talks about things using framing that people are very comfortable with, like the CCP being the bad guys, right? And talking about all the issues that the CCP are doing in America, whether it's the banking or manipulating our markets or manipulating the media or all of these different things where he's using like a familiar enemy as the adversary, but then talking about more in detail how they are destroying our country, pillaging our country. And so then it becomes less important who the person is. The debate can be less about who the person is, who the group is, and more about what they're actually doing and getting to the nuts and bolts of it. Because once you understand how they're destroying our country, like he talks about the lords of easy money a lot, right? Mm-hmm. It's easier to detangle it and then understand the problem and resolve it. And then, who the culprit is becomes almost secondary, because it's like, all right, we can kind of backtrack it, trace it back, figure out who the culprits are. And then whether it's the CCP or somebody else, that kind of becomes, part of the exercise after the fact. But I feel like Bannon has spent many, many years educating the public on exactly how our country has been gutted.
100%. And I would just say about the CCP, before I hand it over to you, Burning Bright, I think of that as a one-party state, right? That's what China has been. So everybody in politics, everybody in society is either part of the CCP or was part of it or is directly linked to it. That's just a necessity in a one-party state. And I would argue that we have a one-party state or have had a one-party state here in America with the Uniparty. And so everyone in politics, even the people who align with MAGA now, we're still part of that GOP establishment, still having to play the GOP establishment game from the uniparty right. And it's that same element. And so when we look at China, when we look at these other countries, we have to keep in mind the fact that the regime had this major foothold. They had full control over these superpower nations for decade after decade after decade. So everyone in any area of societal power in a place like China was at one time part of that one party state, the same way that everyone here has been at some point part of that uniparty or a supporter of that uniparty. Go ahead, Burning Bright.
Yeah, I love what both of you said, and the way Ghost framed as well, Bannon's rhetoric and how I know you've been a big believer in Bannon for a long time, Chris, and pushing him, and I certainly went back and forth on it. But when you look at the way he structures his arguments, I think are definitely signal based. And the way Ghost kind of laid that out, it was funny. Before he said that, I was thinking, what's the strategy here from like a disclosure perspective? So as I led into this segment by saying, do normies pick up on a lot of this stuff that's going on, like the signal and the noise? I think ultimately they don't, in a way that a lot of people watching a show like this do, looking for strange happenings in the war of stories, right? They don't even know, normies don't even know a war of stories is going on, or narrative warfare, right? They don't even know what a psyop is, although maybe that's becoming more common. Mm-hmm. But I think that the genius of this is, we're talking about the British Empire. Chris, you just talked about the CCP. We've talked about the globalist enemy. Like, we all recognize, whatever terms you use, there is a centralizing force, as you said, that is the enemy that we're against, the invisible enemy, as Trump would call them, right? But leading with that rhetoric, we've all realized is never going to make a fraction of a dent on a macro level in the collective mind of society. And now, I don't think you need the full-scale participation of Normieville to change the system. I think we're seeing firsthand that you don't need that. You kind of just need their acquiescence, or not their active resistance, their consent through compliance, as you would say. You actually need that for the good stuff and the bad stuff. But the genius of the way Bannon communicates here, I think, is actually being mirrored in what Trump is doing on a grand stage. When Trump brings in that chart into his White House lawn deployment and starts like pointing at it, it's goofy, it's funny. It was all over YouTube. All the biggest channels are talking about it, right? But what's Trump doing there? He's actually doing what Bannon does to a much more dialed in audience, but he's doing it broadly and saying, did you motherfuckers know how badly we've been getting porked since World War II, right? That's why I said on Wednesday night, the takeaway from that chart was not the right column, it was the left column. The vast majority of people did not know about the left column. They had no idea we were being absolutely screwed like that. And I think what this is it's a roundabout way of saying, we kind of tried to tell Americans that the deep state was real and the British crown and all this stuff, right? And they're just not listening. Mm-hmm. So let's get them on board with being against everything that centralized control structure stands for, so that when that structure tries to come in disguise 30 years from now, it's going to be laughed out of the room, because people will have much more of a de facto direct understanding of common sense, civics and economics than they ever had before.
No doubt. And you got to think about what the tariffs actually are. If you understand top-down centralized control, dictating and orchestrating the tariff system. That's just subsidies being paid around the world, mostly by the United States, to keep other countries solvent and on board with the regime agenda. We don't need that stuff. Now, there's going to be some adjustment period coming back. We can't just build a bunch of factories and start producing everything that we've been buying from foreign countries. And then, of course, the other thing is, as we build these new factories, they're going to be high-tech factories, which means a lot of it is going to be automated. So that changes things a little bit. But unless you guys want to respond to that, I want to move on to Marco Rubio.
Could I just say one thing on a word you mentioned in the last segment was rapprochement, or one of you did. Bannon did. And it just stuck in my mind because he's talking about Russia, and man, rapprochement, however the hell you pronounce that, it means a reestablishing of harmonious relations, right? Key in on re-establishing. How many normies know that we had a harmonious relationship with Russia? And how far back is Steve Bannon talking about? This is something we've been talking about a lot lately. So I think just another point on the signal that Bannon is actually dropping. That was a little aside there, I think, of him hinting at what we talk about a lot, which is there's always been some form of an alliance, or should be, between the United States and Russia. The rapprochement isn't going back to the 90s or the 80s or the 70s or 60s. He's talking about going way back to the 1800s or the early 1900s.
If we are fighting the same enemy everywhere, and I believe that we are, then it makes sense that we would have alliances with everyone in the world in that fight. And it's the people of these nations. Ghost, did you want to say anything, or I'll drop this Rubio in here?
Yeah, real quick, I'll just add, I don't know if it was on this show or another Badlands show, but I mentioned there's that video that somebody made and shared a while back, the capitulation tour of Trump going around, and basically the implication in the video. And I understand the spirit of it, but at the time I said that, I didn't like the framing of that, because I felt like it was framing the enemy as these foreign countries, right? As opposed to a transnational cartel. I would encourage everyone to go back and watch that video again, but instead of a capitulation tour, view it as Trump uniting the tribes. View it as Trump going around to these places. I mean, not all the places. Some of the places, I think when he went to the British Crown, that was him being flippantly disrespectful to them. But the other places, I think it was him and them pledging their swords, so to speak, to Trump's cause and being we're with you. I think that's the way that I've always viewed it, not as a capitulation, but as we're with you, go do it. Let's go.
I'm with you. Okay, Rubio.
Largest consumer market in the world, and yet the only thing we export is services. And we need to stop that. We need to get back to a time where we're a country that can make things, and to do that, we have to reset the global order of trade.
And the other part of my question.
Well, the worst thing is to leave it the way it is forever. I mean, just can't continue. We can't continue to be a country that doesn't make things. We have to be able to make things to provide jobs for Americans. That's it. It's that simple. China, as an example, I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, they don't consume anything. All they do is export and flood and distort markets, in addition to all the tariffs and barriers they put in place. So the president rightly has concluded that the current status of global trade is bad for America and good for a bunch of other people, and he's going to reset it, and he's absolutely right.
He's resetting the order of global trade. That's the Secretary of State just laying it out. That sounds like a great reset. And, I say this all the time. The Great Reset plan is still charging ahead. Now, they're either trying to take over the Trump MAGA plan or vice versa. And those plans will eventually depart. One will win and the other will not. But that thing's moving forward one way or another. These economic adjustments, let's call them, were going to happen in either world. And now Trump is setting out the story to convince us actually the good things that are happening are being done as a result of the things that we are doing to make America sovereign and strong, and not because a bunch of technocrats have planned out your entire future in order to mark the end of human liberty.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, you use the term drafting a lot. And I think this was 2022. I'd written an article that, now if I wrote it now, it would come out a lot better. But at least the kernel of the idea at the time, I called it the good reset. And it was economic based. And it was all about essentially my personal reading of Operation Warp Speed from an economic perspective was to say, if you ignore all of the lockdowns, if you ignore the Orwellian communism dictatorial bullshit that we went through during COVID, if you were going to decouple from a globalist trade system, ironically, it would look very similar to what was happening in 2020 on a couple of counts. Number one, you would have to get public mandate to decouple from a fiat central banking system. How do you do that? You need that central banking system to suck. You need for normal people for them to understand what inflation is rather than some abstract concept. You need them to go to a store and see that their money is getting less valuable, right? Lumber's going up. Housing costs went up 100% in 2 fucking years, right? But also, you would need, how do you get the buy-in to decouple from a global trade system that, yes, has leached all these jobs away from Americans, but that now all these American companies and jobs are based off of, they're dependent on. You can't sell that to people if you're Donald Trump in 2020. So isn't it something that the Biden regime comes in and a global pandemic comes in and the decoupling just started happening right then, and most of it was the United States and China. And one of the things I said in the Good Reset is, if you were Trump and Xi and you wanted to force a decoupling, this would be perfect cover for you to do so. And now Trump's coming in circa 2025, and maybe there'll be a little bit of short-term pain, but the pain was the last 4 years we went through. That's the brilliance of the devolution term, and why I've been of the belief the whole time that devolution was not a reaction to something that the enemy did. It was a plan that was implemented to allow the enemy to do things that, as you just kind of pointed out, Chris, turns out we were going to need to do a lot of the same things en route to hopefully what's a much better outcome.
Or at least understand them
right.
in this way. Yeah, go ahead, Ghost.
Yeah. Worth noting, because you mentioned Operation Warp Speed, Adam Bowler, Jared Kushner's college friend, who was appointed the special envoy for hostage negotiations, founding member of Operation Warp Speed, also the guy who Trump imbued with all of his executive authority with the Defense Production Act in 2020. So when Trump signed that executive order, he then turned around and gave all of that executive authority exclusively to Adam Bowler. And now that guy is running around right now causing problems for some of these globalist cartel members by blowing up their negotiations, right? And making light of, or exposing kind of the silliness of their stalemate. Just wanted to note that seems very, very notable. And the fact that he's Kushner's friend and that he was in the first Trump administration and we never heard his name before now is pretty crazy. But you mentioned with operate. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But with the tariffs, the infrastructure for all this stuff was laid. Like when the tariffs were actually implemented against us, we could probably go back and find that in history. But the 1970s is when all the infrastructure was laid for the globalist trade system, right? Mm-hmm. The World Economic Forum was founded in 1971 by Klaus Schwab. He was a protege of Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, Secretary of State at the time, instructed him to start the World Economic Forum. Henry Kissinger then turned around and instructed his other protege, Zbigniew Brzezinski, to create the Trilateral Commission in 1973. A few months later, 1974, Kissinger negotiates the petrodollar deal with the Saudis to end the Yom Kippur War, or rather to end the embargo against us from the Yom Kippur War, and then immediately resigns as Secretary of State because of the Watergate scandal, rides off into the sunset, and him and Zbigniew Brzezinski with the Trilateral Commission and the World Economic Forum then go to lay all of the infrastructure that has been weaponized against us for the past, 50 years. So this stuff has been, like, the momentum of this has been in place for longer than the three of us have been alive. And it's so important to understand that, I think, when you're looking at how do you stop it. It's like you don't just stop it, I think you draft off of it. You draft off the momentum, and then you nudge it a different direction and derail it. And I think that's what Burning Bright, I know you've talked about that. Chris, you've talked about that. Y'all did the great episode on Story Hour about racing with drafting. So I think Days of Thunder, yeah.
Indeed.
Which, I don't know if you're going to move off of this, but when you mentioned the reset too, Chris, I don't know if this might be, that was the context under which I wanted to bring up Scott Bessent. So I've been saying on some shows recently that, like, if you guys are looking for some signal that's not coming from Donald Trump or Steve Bannon, watch every single appearance of Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent and go back 12 months. Go through 2024. They are telling you in order, in detail, exactly what they are going to do. And so far at the start of Trump 2.0, they are doing every single thing that they said they were going to do. But specifically to the reset point that you brought up, Chris, I was spurging out on Bessent this weekend, and I found this clip from June of him that I thought was really interesting. It's a short clip here. Who's he talking to? The Manhattan Institute.
I think as an economic historian and someone who's been in markets for 40 years, I actually think I'm starting to look like it now. It is, I think we're also at a unique moment geopolitically, and I could see in the next few years that we are going to have some kind of a grand global economic reordering. There's something on the equivalent of a new Bretton Woods, or if you want to go back, like something back to the Steel Agreements or the Treaty of Versailles. There's a very good chance that we are going to have to have that over the next 4 years, and I'd like to be a part of it. I've studied this. I think it's kind of a unique skill set. I think.
So what do you know? He ended up being a part of it. He ended up being a part of that whole thing. And, just one note on it would be to some of the points you made early in the episode, Chris, about this centralized control structure. It's kind of funny. The language Bessent is using there is like, oh, we kind of might need a new Bretton Woods agreement. We might need to go back to the Treaty of Versailles. Now, if you just flip the framing of that just a little bit through the framing that we often talk about, is Scott Bessent saying we need a new version of these things? Or is he saying we are here to undo the Bretton Woods Agreement, the Treaty of Versailles, etc.? So it's kind of how I took it.
I'm with you. That's very interesting. And, no offense to Scott Bessent, who seems like he's doing a great job. Seems like a brilliant guy who's got his finger on the pulse of things. He also used to be in like the George Soros orbit and was a board member at the International Crisis Group, which is the think tank, the globalist think tank that literally sets out the plans for the overthrow of nations. So something to be mindful of. He's been kind of in that great reset vein for a very long time. Ghost, you had a clip.
Is Trump drafting team members from the Great Reset and using them?
It could very well be true. And, Bessent spent the last 2 years up to 2024 appearing often on War Room, talking to Steve Bannon. He put out some op-eds that were like, this is the way. So either we're getting dog walked into the worst dystopia we could ever imagine, or they've shifted things. Right. Go ahead, Ghost.
Yeah, I would add that chapter 13 of The Art of War, Sun Tzu, the final chapter of the book on the use of spies. And Sun Tzu says the most important unit in the entire military is the spy, and the five types of spies, and the two most valuable being the ones that you capture from the enemy and convert, or the ones that you send into the enemy camp to infiltrate. Like those are the two most important ones, because you can use them to deploy, fake psyops against the enemy, like send bad information to the enemy, right? So, I mean, I think that's
understand the enemy's thinking.
Exactly. So it's I think that's really important to consider when you're thinking about, when you hear that, oh, somebody in the Trump administration was connected to Soros. Doesn't necessarily mean that he is a Soros shill. It could be something, there could be a lot more to it than that when you consider Trump's love of that book.
Indeed. Yeah. Go ahead. I know you want to say something else.
We keep, sorry. There's too much interesting shit. But it reminds me of a thing that Chris says a lot. That's just the rhetoric is, how do you orient yourself in this kind of chaos? This is something that I know people who watch the show think about personally. This is what we think about all the time, right? And I think this Bessent thing and what you point out about him, Chris and Ghost, is important for us to talk about and think about. But I think that, what Chris probably talks about the most is a lot of this first principles rhetoric is, if we can't know what the intentions are of Scott Bessent and what his loyalties are, all we can do is listen to the public deployments and then look at how they match up with the actions that we're seeing in the administration. We can't just rely on who Trump has around him, right? Because we know that he would have good guys and bad guys around him. He's walking in both worlds in terms of, he knows what he's doing. Trump knows what he's doing, but we don't always know what Trump is doing. So with Bessent, I think the reason I single him out for signal is not knowing what his previous intentions were. Everything he has said so far about what we need to do is unassailably correct. And now he could be a former Great Reset architect who was going to be used by the bad guys to undo this whole system and put something very bad in its place. But I'm just saying, he's actually called, I recently learned this, Bessent is called the hatchet man in central banking circles. He's a guy that you bring in when you want, as you said, Chris, when you want to destroy a system. So, hey, doesn't mean he's good or bad. It means that he's a weapon, and Trump is currently deploying him and seems to be deploying him against the system that we're going against. So that's all you can do, like people get stressed out about, is he good? Is he bad? Try not to worry about that. Try to look at what these guys are saying and then put it through your own filter. Do you agree with what they're saying in that vacuum right there? And then keep an eye on them going forward.
Yeah, that's something I harp on a lot. I think that you have to have some objective standard to compare all these things to, and one of those objective standards is this honest? And that's one of the most important things to pay attention to, and something that I have tried to hold pretty tightly to over these past few years. And sometimes that means getting in trouble for saying, hey, that guy is lying. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but he's clearly lying. He's saying he's telling you the truth, and that's clearly not the truth as he knows it. So there has to be something wrong there, and I know it's all a white hat psyop and they're just waking up the normies and blah, blah, blah. We don't have to linger on that. Ghost, you had a clip of Bessent as well from one of the people, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, cool. Here we go.
This is from his interview with Tucker, which I think was just released like 2 days ago, or yesterday actually. I just want to play like a 15-second clip. He really, I think, does a good job of dismantling like the attacks against the tariffs, which are coming from longtime Trump allies. People who aren't looking at this holistically. Maybe they aren't speaking honestly. I mean, who's to say? I have to add before we play this, though, I didn't know that he had that nickname. I love the fact that he has his own Trumpomania nickname, the Hatchet Man. Yeah, so he has a nickname, and then Susie Wiles comes in with the Ice Maiden. Like, that's amazing. So, yeah. All right, so let's play this.
And this is the first step towards realigning that. A lot of our trading partners, including some of our allies, have not been good partners. If tariffs are so bad, why do they have them? Why do they have them, right? Or if the American consumer is going to pay all the tariff, then why do they care about tariffs? Right. Because they're going to eat them. So I think that this is the beginning of a process we're going to reindustrialize, that we have gone to a highly financialized economy. We have stopped making things, especially a lot of things that are relevant for national security. I think one of the few good.
Okay, I let that play a little longer because I think he said a little more there that was interesting. But when he talks about we've gone to this very financial economy, I mean, all of these financial instruments that the banks invented, right? That they buy and sell on, and these derivatives and all this nonsense that is basically a house of cards and could very easily collapse now. He's absolutely right. That's all of this wealth that they've generated, where they talk about how rich America is, but a lot of it's just fiat and based on like speculation. And that has to do a lot with the Glass-Steagall Act and all that. But different conversation. He really nails it right there, though, when he says, if the American consumer is paying for this, then why do they care so much? They being the foreign countries, but also the oligarchs who are screaming at the top of their lungs now that Donald Trump's going to destroy America.
It's funny. They are making the argument. They're saying the tariffs are going to cause all these bad things for you. You're going to hate them. We like them.
Yeah. Yeah. And one more Bessent point is I didn't grab the clip, unfortunately, before the show. But man, he did a White House Lawn interview with somebody, CNN or somebody, and they said, what's your advice to other countries who might retaliate? And he said, my advice to them would be don't. I would sit back because this is going to be the best it gets for you. Like he's telling them, as Chris knows, I bring this up every episode of anything. Power is power. And I think Scott Bessent is the hatchet man out there, and he's telling the globalist regime, we got you, bitch. Like you can raise your tariffs and it will destroy your country within a span of months. So good luck.
Let me bring up this article from the Financial Times just briefly, because you said the thing about power, and I think this is really relevant. Direct Economics, the Great MAGA Experiment. This is from today in the Financial Times, which, if you're not familiar with the publication, is one of the key mouthpieces of the global regime. Just a few paragraphs here. Actually, we can just cut right down toward the end. But the article in general is about how populist parties have been using kind of direct action in various ways. He says we can see direct economics in action in three different ways. First is the centralization of executive power in U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policy. The arbitrariness of his tariff announcements is taken as a demerit by many. Yet arguably, from the point of view of direct economics, it is this very arbitrariness that is their strength. When European traders have to wait until Trump wakes up to know what the flow of markets will be for the day, this is not a sign of weakness for him, but of power. It shows that the abstract ideas of most favored nation treatment or multilateral sovereignty pooling were always shadows on the face of U.S. omnipotence and the president's capacity to shift action at a global level. And I think that's it right there. Point made very cleanly in the same way Bessent just made the point in the clip Ghost shared. Like, they're all talking about how this instability and uncertainty is going to be so bad for the markets. That's what's happening. Donald Trump is making the markets crash.
Yep.
That's part of it.
Yeah. And so the direct quote that I'd found was from Bessent. My advice to every country right now is do not retaliate. Sit back, take it in. Let's see how it goes. Because if you retaliate, there will be escalation. So again, as you said, Chris, the Financial Times laying it out, like we're kind of seeing a bit of a normie education go on. And I think it's less to Americans. I think it's more to Western citizens of Western regime nations that they're in for a rude awakening this year when they figure out that they don't have real countries and they have not had real countries or real economies in a long time, and that Americans have actually been funding their entire way of life. So one of the things I'm really looking for this year is what starts to happen from a sort of a public sentiment perspective in Canada, in Germany, in England, when I have a feeling that things are going to get a lot worse for them on account of our tariffs than it's going to get for Americans on account of theirs.
Ghost?
Yeah, that's well said. Very well said. I mean, if you stop and you consider that, Bernie Bright and I think weeks back, we talked about the global north and the global south dynamic, where the global north being Europe, the United States, is like a tax farm where they basically extract wealth from the wealthy citizenry, right? Relatively speaking. The global south being the rest of the world, which turns into a slave plantation where they use for cheap labor to produce cheap goods that are then used to flood the markets in those wealthy nations, right? Now, if you live in the wealthy nation, you can't compete with the cheap goods. You also can't create your own cheap goods and send them back to the global south because they have tariffs against you, right? They have walls up to prevent you from coming into their market. You're trapped. You have nothing you can do. All you can do is go get a job at the bank, working as a teller or whatever, or as an analyst, on these financial instruments, these fake financial instruments, or one of these corporations. So by doing these tariffs, you're now eliminating that system or undercutting it. You couple that with the deregulation, which I know we've all been talking about for a while on various Badlands shows, just in general in the truth community. That, to me, it's the equivalent of small. If you think of the small business world, like the middle class as being a school of piranhas, and the corporate America, the corporatists as being great white sharks, it's like a school of piranhas just devouring a great white shark. That's what, because the thing that corporate America has in common with the government is that they're both ruled by large bureaucracies that do not move quickly. They can't make fast decisions. They can't move with agility and adapt to evolving conditions. Small businesses, which don't use bureaucracies, and by the way, small businesses can still be multi-million-dollar companies, like big companies. They can move very quickly. They can change things up, and that agility is going to allow small businesses in the middle class to devour corporate America.
Let me take a pause just for a second and welcome probably all the new people just watching Badlands for the first time.
Yeah,
we are featured up on the top of Rumble, so thanks to the Rumble guys for that little hat tip. And if you guys are watching or listening on Rumble, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. If you like the show, if you don't like the show, well then, do whatever it is you're going to do.
Scram.
Yeah. You can leave.
I wanted to fact check Ghost. He made a ridiculous analogy about piranhas and great white sharks. Due to the blood systems and relative size of the animals in question, they would never come into contact with each other in the same domain. Okay, Ghost.
Is this a freshwater, saltwater thing, or is this just a
Ghost?
What is it?
Ghost. Piranhas require much warmer waters, and great whites require much colder waters. So you're just not going to get that kind of a dynamic playing out. But what you just said about small companies being nimble, just going to point out, I laid out an economic theory 3 years ago called, too small to fail. And it was exactly what you're talking about, Ghost. And I think this is why, the way you explained it is why I think the demeanor of Trump and Bessent and Lutnick in particular, probably, there was a great segment with him on Fox News a couple days ago, like 19-20 minute segment, where they were like, well, what about all the damage? What about all the pain? What about Americans, right? All the panic. And these guys they're not worried. And they're not worried for exactly the reasons Ghost laid out. And that's because they know that the real economy that they're trying to support are actually going to be buoyed by this move because they can move so quickly and fill the demand left over by giant corporations. So I think we're seeing an inverse of too big to fail is the era of globalists. We're actually going to shift to too small to fail because small companies also have much lower overhead than these big companies. And these massive companies like your Walmarts and Targets of the world, they subsist on like 1% margins. Because 1, 2, 3% margins to the tune of hundreds of billions is a viable business model, right? Where a regular business in America, you can't subsist on 1, 2, 3% margins. and you shouldn't be able to. So, sucks to suck if you're one of these giant companies that can't handle tariffs.
Well, that's what you get for being the winner in who gets to be the monopoly contest,
right?
As chosen by the top-down centralized control system. Speaking of Europe, Ghost, you just mentioned them a couple minutes ago. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who
villainous name.
Yeah, for real. And Sergei Lavrov, one of our favorites, the foreign minister of Russia, a couple of weeks ago called her Führer Ursula. This was her speech in response to the Trump tariffs. I'm going to play like 3 minutes of it, and maybe I'll speed it up a bit more. It's at 1.25. We'll see how that goes. But it's basically just a panic session where she's like, please don't destroy our system. We'll do whatever we can. Here we go.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe, also for the most vulnerable countries, which are now subject to some of the highest US tariffs, the opposite of what we wanted to achieve. The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills, medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up. And this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens. All businesses, big and small, will suffer from day one. From greater uncertainty to the disruption of supply chains, to burdensome bureaucracy, the costs of doing business with the United States will drastically increase. And what is more, there seems to be no order in the disorder, no clear path through the complexity and chaos that is being created as all US trading partners are hit. In the past 80 years, trade between the European Union and the United States has created millions of jobs. Consumers across the Atlantic have benefited from reduced prices. Businesses have benefited from huge opportunities, leading to unprecedented growth and prosperity. And at the same time, we know that the global trading system has serious deficiencies. I agree with President Trump that others are taking unfair advantage of the current rules. And I'm ready to support any efforts to make the global trading system fit for the realities of the global economy. But I also want to be clear. Reaching for tariffs as your first and last tool will not fix it. This is why from the outset, we have always been ready to negotiate with the United States to remove the remaining barriers to transatlantic trade.
I mean, it's I've often used the term, we just did the Gray on Tuesday night, all about wolves. And there's a term called a submission grin that happens in wolf packs. People often think a wolf is threatening them when it's baring its teeth and lowering its body position. But what it's doing is asking for mercy. And that's what's going on right there. She's showing her teeth and saying, we'll bite you if we need to, while leading the whole way up to saying, we will lose this fight. Please don't attack me. And that's what's going on. That's a submission grin. And one of the things, the way I've been framing this a lot is I've often said when they say that such and such is a threat to their democracy, they're not lying. When they say that it's a threat to their economy, they're not lying. Almost every single word that Ursula von der Leyen said there is 100% true, and we are 100% in favor of it. So also, stop calling us consumers, you bureaucratic fucks. Like, even the language coding of calling human beings consumers, that's how they think of us. They think of us as useless eaters, consumers, and they get us to say it back to them. Consume our schlock, eat it, eat. And, you know, they're saying that Trump is doing away with that system, and we're totally on board with that.
Well, now we have to do this thing and welcome in the one and only.
Party's over. You don't get a cut of any rants tonight.
What's up, guys?
You escaped the sorority house. I'm so happy. We didn't have to pay the ransom. I really didn't have to pay it.
The sorority house? I escaped the airport. That's what I was aiming to do today. Holy shit. I was in the airport or on an airplane for 16 and a half hours today.
That is absolutely nuts.
It was crazy. Have you guys like bombed the show totally without me? Or how's
No,
it been?
I think
probably one of the
we've
better
done
shows.
okay.
Okay, well, how much is Burning Bright talk? That's the real metric.
A healthy amount, but not too much.
I don't know if I believe you.
Yeah, Ghost has been surprisingly quiet.
Is everything okay at home, Ghost?
It's a laconic night, man. It's just like I'm choosing my words wisely, and they pack a much stronger punch, I think.
Oh no, my camera.
He's also experiencing a very mild, like local weather report delay, I would say. So,
by the way, in that Ursula clip, sorry, 1 second, Ghost. I'll this will be quick, and then I'll hand it over to you. She goes on to say that the countries of Europe will all have each other's back. If you mess with one of them, you're messing with all of them, and that they would weather the storm. So, Ursula von der Leyen, I was surprised to see. Go for it, Ghost.
Is it just me, or does she have like a Ziggy Stardust kind of like David Bowie vibe about her? I feel like she's like, you put like a tattoo of her one eye, and she is Ziggy Stardust, man.
Like Greta Thunberg mixed with David Bowie.
We really should play this quick video of Nigel Farage. For those who don't know, the European Union president is not an elected position. This is like an appointed position. It's a bureaucrat. This is from 2010. And for those who don't remember, Nigel Farage led the Brexit movement in the summer of 2016. They elected to leave the European Union. Britain did. He then was like retired from politics. That was his big one thing. They're still, by the way, fighting to like finalize that whole thing. He helped Donald Trump campaign to become president in 2016. And he is definitely a member of the Sovereign Alliance and a friend of the program, so to speak. Let's listen to what he has to say about then European Union president.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous. And I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states. You appear to have a loathing for the very concept of the existence of nation states. Perhaps that's because you come from Belgium, which of course is pretty much a non-country. But since you took over, we've seen Greece reduced to nothing more than a protectorate. Sir, you have no legitimacy in this job at all, and I can say with confidence that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the British people in saying, we don't know you, we don't want you, and the sooner you're put out to grass, the better.
So, worth noting, 15 years ago, there was a guy out there saying that governments are illegitimate, and he was also ragging on that guy at the beginning. I mean, nailed his appearance, just absolutely nailed his appearance. And he also came out of retirement last June. He said, I got to come back and finish what we started. Like, this is like the reunion tour. Trump's coming back. I'm coming back. Like, let's finish this thing. And it definitely feels like we're gearing up for, I don't know if it's the sequel or the trilogy or whatever movie we're on at this point. You know, we need a lot more of him and a lot less of Keir Starmer.
Farage talking that ish.
Indeed. Ghost. So John had to step away. He'll be back in a second. But in the meantime, So we have let's shift subjects here. We have Netanyahu coming back for, also known as our boy Yuhu, coming back on Monday for a visit with Donald Trump. He was down at Mar-a-Lago. What was that, about 6 months ago? And we had Donald Trump's like overhand handshake, maybe signifying that he has the upper hand. I don't know, but I know that you have some thoughts about all of this. And there's been some chatter in the influencer class this week.
Yes. I didn't know if you had something to play, but yeah, for sure.
Well, I can play it whenever you're ready. If you have that.
No, I mean, let's talk about it a little bit first. So this is a deployment that I've been long expecting. I've been talking about it for, almost 2 years at this point. And it really goes back to way before October 7th, like the whole Gaza thing, starting actually with my state, with the state of Virginia. The fall of, I think it was 2022, Glenn Youngkin passed an executive order, and I think had legislation passed to have the IRHA's definition of anti-Semitism officially implemented as part of hate speech. And that would be the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA. And basically, already anti-Semitism has its roots, like it already is part of the hate speech laws. If you commit a crime and that is your motivation, you're going to be charged with hate crimes on top of whatever. That's already been codified for a long time. This is more about the criticism of Israel, the criticism of Zionism. You can go look that definition up for yourself. But having that implemented at the state level, we have 38 states, I think it is now, maybe 40. Most of them Republican. Kristi Noem would be another person who had that passed in South Dakota, where they're infringing on speech and they're coming after speech. And I warned about this on Badlands Daily almost 2 years ago. Talked about it with CanCon before anybody was even worried about the Middle East. The Middle East was perfectly peaceful at that point. And now, of course, we see where everything's headed. But I do think that Trump has anticipated this. It seems like he's leaning into it really hard. And now we have Candace Owens. Well, we can just kind of play the clip. She's basically saying Trump's a puppet. So,
which one did you want to?
Whichever one you thought was more effective. They're both kind of the same thing, but the one where one of the first two I sent where she was
let me go ahead and grab that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Might have been the second one that was more effective. I think
I got you.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Secretary RFK Jr. saying, "Oh, we have to declare this an epidemic." And what we're really talking about is people voicing opinions against Israel's policies on blowing up Palestinian kids. You can accept that or you cannot accept that. It is just a reality. And if you don't understand how close we are inching to them destroying free speech, and once speech goes, everything else goes, then you need to start paying attention. They are redefining anti-Semitism, even be parts of the Bible. They are saying that it is anti-Semitism, and the Trump administration is pushing this on college campuses to even suggest that a Jewish person might be more loyal to Israel than they are to America. That's totally plausible. It's totally plausible that a black person in America might be more loyal to Uganda than they are to America. Look at that. That is like, why are we redefining this? Portions of the Bible? It's getting crazy. I want to show you the Senate hearings. They had another Senate hearing, like the one that I showed up on, except this one, it was on anti-Semitism on college campuses. And I want you to listen to what this rabbi got up and said as he called for hate speech laws. Okay, this is Rabbi Levi Shem Tov. He is the executive vice president of American Friends of Lubavitch. This is like a Lubavitcher who I spoke about, and RFK Jr. came and said, "Don't speak about Lubavitch." And I said, this is actually a very radical form of Judaism. Here is what he said. Listen to him standing up, Rabbi Levi Shem Tov. Here's what he wants for America.
Anti-Semitism is not just an age-old prejudice. It is a contemporary crisis manifesting on campuses across the nation. It is not enough for individuals or institutions to merely claim they are not anti-Semitic. As my father once taught me, it is not enough for people, especially public figures, to be neutral or not be anti-Semitic. One must be anti-Semitic.
That is the exact same rhetoric, okay, as Ibram X. Kendi during the peak of BLM saying it's not enough to be racist, you have to actively be anti-racist. It's the exact same rhetoric, okay? There's no way to slice it. So what is happening right now that we, meaning the people who voted for and have supported Trump for years and got him into office because he we actually were standing up to him when BLM was going crazy and calling everybody white supremacists, and people, while Trump was in office, there were George Floyd riots. People that stood up for him and said this is wrong are now watching his administration execute the exact same thing, but this time it's for anti-Semitism. And it's not even for anti-Semitism, really. It's because this is not helpful to Jews in America. It's for Israel. Like, it feels like Netanyahu is running the White House and Trump's just signing and doing whatever they say, right? It feels like Netanyahu should be sitting in the Oval Office as they demand hate speech laws and they get what they want. Every day they're announcing something that they're going to do to further support Israel. And that something is now looking to me like a detriment to American freedom. And if you can't see that, okay, it is time for you to take off the rose-colored glasses. Because just because Trump was against all of this in 2016 does not mean that he does not have people that are around him who are for this now that we are in 2025.
Won't Ron DeSantis save us from Donald Trump? Go ahead, Ghost. Clarify that we're being sarcastic for the new viewers here.
Yeah. So, this is something that, again, I've long anticipated coming. It's not like it's a shocker for people to be talking about this now. I don't think this is like a new revelation or anything. And, I'm going to engage with this rather than kind of going to like the shill route or like the bad actor route. I'm going to lean into like the earnest concern out there, because I know there's a lot of earnest concern. Now, I've done plenty of writing and plenty of musing on the reasons why I am not worried about it. I think that it's a big rug. We'll kind of table that for a minute. I kind of want to start actually here. I found this. I'm at my in-laws, as I told you, and I found this on a dining room table earlier today. This is a pocket constitution from Turning Point USA, signed by Charlie Kirk, or like, it's like his printed little signature.
Auto pen?
Actually, what's that?
Auto pen?
Yeah, like auto pen, it's like part of the print. Actually, Chris, on page 14, I think it was, there's a whole little bio here on astronaut John Glenn. First man,
No kidding.
First astronaut to orbit the Earth, So I thought that one, I think Charlie may put that one in there for you. I just
shout out to the spacemen. Yeah.
It tickled me pink when I saw that. But I really wanted, I was just kind of thumbing through it earlier, and it's interesting. How often do you kind of go and read the amendments? I actually went and read the First Amendment. And what's interesting about the First Amendment is it exclusively says, like in the first few lines, that the whole point of it, the whole reason that they're doing it is because religion. Like, they're like, that's the big concern here. The big concern is religion. And I wanted to find, here we go. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, she's right when she talks about the IHRA's definition, when she talks about how this is more about the criticism of the government of Israel. But even if it wasn't, even if this was the criticism of the Jewish faith, that is all perfectly enshrined right here in this Constitution. There's nothing wrong with that. And these laws that they're passing at the state level, which are being passed by Republican legislatures, and that's what we need to be aware of. It's the Republicans who are coming for your freedom of speech, not the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats are too, but it's a different attack vector. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on before we get just a little more fun, if you want to share my screen, it's worth noting that Candace Owens was there, when the whole Kanye DEFCON 3 thing happened. The catalyzing event was October 3rd, 2022. And that was when Candace Owens and Kanye wore White Lives Matter shirts to the Paris Fashion Week. That was when literally the gloves came off and they all came after Kanye full tilt. And that was when he, in response to that, did the "I'm going DEFCON 3 tomorrow" tweet. Worth noting, I kind of wanted to we all saw what Kanye did the week of the Super Bowl back in early February. And interestingly enough, he goes, the fact that him and Candace were side by side in that deployment back in 2022, he goes a different route than Candace does, because Candace is now saying that Trump is a puppet and that Netanyahu's running America. She's not the only person saying that. Colonel McGregor saying that. Judge Napolitano, who's a dear friend of Trump, is saying that. There are a lot of Trump allies who are saying that as well. But this is an interesting little way he goes about this. The Shalom thing is, of course, hilarious because he's a great troll. And then he says, I used to want to, Kamala until she lost. I don't, losers anymore. And then he says, the Democrats made me take the loser post down. No, I'm kidding. They don't control black people anymore. Trump for life. And then he reposts Elon and says, Elon's post is cool. He's replying to a Kanye post. And then he says, family for life. He then says, MBS granted me 100 million acres to build Drome. That's love. Thank you, MBS. Talking about the Saudi crown prince. Now just need Trump to hook me up. And he's not lying, by the way. This is an article from December 2023, and it says Kanye West aims to build a 100,000 acre city called Drome in the Middle East. I was tracking that at the time. And this is an article from 2013. I was in architecture school at the time. Kanye went and gave a very serious talk to the architecture school at Harvard, and he was saying how he was looking for architects. He wanted to hire architects because he wanted to go build a city somewhere. He's like, I just need to find the land, but I want to go build a city from scratch and kind of like imagine like a new world. Like we could create like the golden age. Like we should go ahead and start thinking about that and doing that. This is 12 years ago. He's talking about doing this. So
cool.
Last thing is he changed new profile pic Kamala Harris, and then he says, I risked my life to wear a red hat. Then he turned to black, talking about the black Make America Great Again hat that Elon was rocking. So I just want to point out that before Kanye started his whole like Nazi promo thing, which the whole thing was a giant like troll thing that culminated with the Super Bowl, he reaffirmed his total loyalty to Trump and said Trump for life, Trump's the man, I'm with Trump, like ride or die. So Candace, maybe take a page out of Kanye's book. Considering the other rhetoric that Kanye says, I think you should probably take a lesson from Kanye. But there are some fascinating developments that are happening in Israel right now that I think Trump helped orchestrate. I actually do kind of buy in. I think it's very possible that our boy Yoo-hoo narrative, considering the other things that are happening politically there, it's very possible that it is our boy Yoo-hoo. So I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, Chris. I look at the parallels between what's happening in Israel right now and what's happening right now in America with our politics, because Trump is leaning into the neocon George Bush thing. He's putting on the George Bush cape and becoming the neocon that George Bush always was. He's getting a lot of flack for it, and rightfully so. But I think a lot of things are being exposed. A lot of people are being exposed because of that. They're exposing themselves. And we're also seeing I'm seeing a lot of like influencers, quote unquote, just kind of like waving the pom-poms and clapping like seals for things they really shouldn't be clapping about, like rhetoric they shouldn't be clapping about, not necessarily actions, but rhetoric they shouldn't be clapping about. And I think
there's certainly
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, there's certainly an op out there to make Trump Hitler and make MAGA into Nazis. And I think that it should be a priority of everyone to avoid that while still being honest about the regime proxy state in the Middle East. And I think that we can kind of take both directions on that and be solid in our assessments. As for our boy Yoo-hoo, I mean, they're going to do the right sorts of things. Trump needs to be close to some of these narratives to avoid that op that I think is incoming. And then the other thing, though, is that if Trump is a servant of the people and he's a tribune of the people aren't actually all the way there on many of these issues. And if Trump is reflecting the American people and trying to get the American people to move forward on these issues, if they're not there, he's not going to be out like way far ahead to the point where he's losing people. We should be pushing that, the people, and of course Badlands in general, or Badlands in particular, I mean, should be pushing that stuff forward to create that space for Trump to move forward. But he's not going to be taking the not extreme in the negative sense, but the extreme view and waiting for everyone to catch up.
Agreed.
Welcome back, John.
And I mean, just listen to Shapiro.
Ahead. Yeah.
Just listen to what Ben Shapiro said. If you play the Ben Shapiro clip side by side with what Candace is sitting here calling him a Jewish puppet, and Ben Shapiro is sitting here screaming at the top of his lungs because Trump just totally rug pulled Netanyahu, tricked him into dropping the 33% tariff the night before the tariffs went into effect, and then the next day put out a 17% tariff. By the way, only put a 10% tariff on Iran. 10% tariff on Iran, 17% tariff on Israel. Interesting number, by the way. And then when they asked for clarity, hey, did you mean to do this? One of the official from the Trump administration who responded said, and I quote, yes, we meant to do this. Israel has been stealing the intellectual property of the United States for decades. It's wrong, and they need to pay for it. And that's what this is about. So,
which official said that, by the way?
It was an unnamed official, but it was quoted in it was like right before Trump got up and did the whole speech where he got up on stage. They said, hey, wait a minute. It says in this chart that Israel is getting a 17% tariff. And they said, yeah, Israel's been stealing the IP, specifically the pharmaceutical industry IP is what they said. So that's from the Times of Israel article that was run there. But
go figure
by the way,
you're talking about the Jews, Gordon.
Yeah.
yeah, of course, John. Like 2 hours and you walk in and yeah.
I was trying to get it out of the way for you to come back.
Yeah, or like Ghost hasn't talked much tonight, and then Chris brings
the Jews.
Nothing but.
By the way, random little tidbit on Israel. Speaking of intellectual property, that's kind of funny because in my other life, I've worked in databases in the kind of tech world, and just kind of had the thought, we've always been absolutely shocked at how many Israelis are, like how advanced Israel is when it comes to internet tech. So random stuff, like consumer facing stuff. So this is totally random, but in my other job, I've been in the sports world and specifically the sports data world. So, you know, when you guys Google like the Red Sox or whatever, Google a team and it'll show you the Google like live results and stuff. Like you don't have to go to a website. It'll just show you on Google. Those widgets are all like when they came out 10 years ago, they're highly advanced. Like it's not easy to do that. And those are Google widgets of live sports and results. Those are all in Israel. So, which was always very weird to me. I'm like, why is Google outsourcing all of its live data to Israel? But so I just randomly thought of it. But at the time, I remember we had an Israeli guy who worked for us who like was on that team. And I was always like, why are the Israelis the ones who are like updating all of our sports results? But these days, I kind of think of that through a bit of a different lens of going, it's kind of strange that they're so heavily involved in many different types of American entertainment, right? From sports to movies to everything else.
I wonder if
I don't think they have
Go ahead, John.
I was gonna say I don't think they have a single world championship in any major sports either. So it's really weird.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I always wonder if they're editing, not the Jews, but anybody is editing live sports instant replays. Like if they decide that touchdown just can't count for what the final score has to be, just get some AI in there, have the ball end up like just an inch short, his knees touching.
Have you ever seen the clip of Dez Bryant in the locker room talking about how they rigged the game and how he wasn't willing to
the Green Bay game, like 2014?
But did you see that he was calling out his own players?
No, I don't.
So he's saying that they got the script, and the other players went along with the script, and Dez wouldn't.
Was
in the
this
infamous
one?
Green Bay game?
I think I got it. Share my screen.
And the cameras do not seem happy to see Dez saying the things that he's saying.
Is this the one?
I don't know, but that's not the locker room.
Dez Bryant
one, but
exposes
it could be
the NFL for rigging games.
Yeah, let's see what he says.
What the owner of the Dolphins tried to offer Brian Flores $100K to tank the season. I'm gonna tell y'all some crazy. The year that I got cut, and some athletes, I told athletes, "Hey man, I feel like our season getting sabotaged." That's just how I feel. There's no way that we should be running the same exact plays. I remember going into Coach Garrett's office, asking, "Hey man, you know I look forward to the game plan. Why am I lining up in the same place each and every week? Like if these guys on the other side not getting paid." There be times in the game I line up, I know I'm one-on-one. Dak don't even look my way. So many times on film, it was so many times on film, so that ball was not coming to me. So it got to the point where I got frustrated and I was like, you know, shit, I'm gonna iron this shit out in the media. That's what I'm gonna do. Because at the end of the day, we the ones who take that heat. We the ones who got to deal with it. And I'm like, man, you know what, man? I can't deal with it. I told Terrence Williams and I told Cole Beasley. Right before I did that interview, this interview probably gonna get me cut. And I was good with that. You can ask any one of them. I said I was good with that.
Is this the right clip?
No, but that's a lot of what he was saying. So this is him way after the fact, but at the time he was screaming at the players after the game, basically saying like, we gave that away. So the way I see this is what he just laid out in the clip John played is him talking about, this is why like fake sports are not fake in the same way a lot of other things are fake. Like there are players who are out there playing the game. You cannot have thousands and thousands of players all in on a mass psyop when most of them end up destitute and broke at the end of it. They would all be talking about it. But Dez figured out that the coach was calling really weird plays, and then what happened in that Green Bay game was he went up for a contested catch that he was not supposed, like the ball was out of bounds, basically. And Dez basically made the greatest catch in playoff history, and they didn't call it a catch. So
I remember
they
that.
said he didn't survive the ground. This was when the NFL created the rule. They literally created a rule for this play and said that Dez didn't survive the ground when he clearly caught the ball. That what was going on here is that the Cowboys were not supposed to win that game, and Dez came down with the ball anyway. So in the locker room, he called out the teammates for not speaking up about it. And when he's talking about the plays, he's saying that the Cowboys were giving the plays to the opponent so that the opposing coach knew what the plays were.
That's a catch.
Yeah, dude.
That's a catch and a touchdown.
I'm a Redskins fan, so I like hate Dez Bryant, but that was 1,000% a catch.
You're a Redskins
I'm not a
fan?
Cowboys guy, but I'm a very big believer that the Dallas Cowboys are an American humiliation ritual in sports. Like this is I agree. That's what the league does. They don't want them to win. Like they've had all these packed rosters. They always lose based on boneheaded weird plays. But yeah, this was a famous one where they changed the rules specifically after the fact to make this not, a winning play. And anyway, it was more about him saying that captains on his team knew that they were supposed to lose the game. And it kind of reminds me, Ghost, you were talking about Kanye and you talk about him a lot. And like, what do they do every time a famous black guy, it's always a famous black guy, comes out and just starts saying everything that they've been doing? They call him crazy. He's nuts, right? And you know who else they did it to in the NFL?
Antonio Harley Pasternak, yeah.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown didn't do shit. Nothing happened. Not a single case has gone against him. And Bill Belichick couldn't wait to get him out of town. So Tom Brady brings him down to Florida and wins a Super Bowl with him.
But he's also like batshit insane, like in a good way.
No, he's not. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like,
he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah, but
you don't
I think
quit in the middle of a game and like take your shit off and like run around the field at halftime.
Unless
they did some bad shit.
Unless, John, they are rigging the games and Antonio Brown knows that they're rigging the games and has been talking about this.
That's not my point. That has nothing to do with that. I'm saying he's a little bit batshit insane. Remember, I messaged him on Twitter. I was like, "Hey man, I'd love to interview," and he's like, "Yeah, man. Let me find it." He's like, "Yeah, what's your price or something?" I was like, "Well, I'm definitely not paying you."
What's your price? AB, baby. Dude, by the way, AB is like one of the great followers on X. He has a hilarious account. And for those who aren't tracking this, Antonio Brown, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, pretty young guy, came to the Trump Butler rally, came full-throated MAGA, threw on the MAGA hat. He super based, and he's a friend of the program for sure. He's in the club.
Interested champ, do you have a budget?
Interested champ, do you have a budget?
And
that is an all-time response. Dude, you have to respect the hustle. You have to respect the hustle.
Well, and John, I think I think that's fair. Like the craziness, but more what I mean. Like there's some crazy videos you can watch of Martin Lawrence, Dave Chappelle, and basically like they drive these guys crazy by putting a full-scale op against them. They go out in the media, and then all these rape allegations come out. Like, it's the same playbook, and it's been done on Dez Bryant, Antonio Brown, Dave Chappelle, Martin Lawrence. Like, it's kind of just crazy how it's always the famous black dude who calls these people out, and then they're like, spin up the ritual, boys.
Yeah. Him dunking on the politicians, though, is so funny. He's great at it. And this must be the Steve Wynn faction of the Zionist regime that's doing the rigging, though, the casinos, but of the sports. But yes, so Israel is very deeply involved in the IT, cybersecurity, software. That's their MO. They are deeply invested.
Is that how we got into the sports stuff?
I guess so.
Yeah. Share my screen real quick, Chris. I'll show you this graphic. And you just came back from the airport. John. If you go to the Badlands Substack and you search ICTS, I've done a few write-ups on this. This company was at the very center. This is the company that provides all the airport security for American airports in the country. ISEC is the one that does all of the passenger screening stuff, a travel doc, APIS solution. Huntley provides the physical security of like TSA and the airport security. And then you might remember all 10 ticks. This is the company that last summer, remember all the people on X were freaking out because Mossad was going to get their personal information. This is all related to the Patriot Act. And it's in order to comply with the Patriot Act, you have to verify that you're not a terrorist. And so this is the company that does that for the government. And by the way, ICTS is the company that was running security at Logan Airport on 9/11 and allowed all the guys on the plane. So they allowed it to happen, and then they have financially benefited from it the most, from the Patriot Act. So go down that rabbit hole. Go to Badlands Substack, search ICTS. You can go down that with me. But interesting, man. It's very interesting.
My acquaintance's dad was on one of those planes that left out of Logan in high school.
One of the planes that crashed?
Yep.
Your acquaintance's dad. That's a...
You can look him up. There's a whole foundation, and she even was invited to the Barack Obama White House. I can probably find it.
What do you mean acquaintance? Can you elaborate?
We went to high school together. We weren't. We didn't like each other, but
gotcha.
We knew each other.
Interesting.
But yeah, his dad, that's what's kind of fun. Not funny. But PsyOps versus PsyOps. I know that guy's dead because there are some people that are the whole thing was fake, nothing happened, and I'm like, I mean, that guy's dead. Yeah. So something happened.
The girl in my class, her dad was on the plane too. So yeah.
Yeah.
John, should we talk about some of the changes at the NSA? We had those firings the other day that Laura Loomer was blamed for, or maybe credited with, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, and I'm not sure that she was actually the cause of any of this, although maybe she was just kind of the bat signal that shines light on the issue. If you put Laura Loomer with any story, that story is going to be viral and controversial just because she's going to present it in such a way. And then the mainstream media is going to be upset that Laura Loomer's even talking to the president. The president should not be allowed to talk to that particular American. But the Timothy Hoff thing in particular.
Yeah, well, first of all, with the Laura Loomer thing, she got credited with firing NSC staff officials, and I don't think CyberCom or NSA is part of the NSC.
Got conflated. No, you're right that it's not, but the whole thing got conflated. And even in some of the coverage, I think it was the New York Post, but some of the other articles about the Hoff and Wendy Noble and David Feith, who, by the way, is the son of Douglas Feith from the George W. Bush kind of defense apparatus.
Interesting. But yeah, the Timothy Hoff thing, or however you say his last name, it's interesting to me because I always revert back to Ezra Cohen Watnick and the stuff that he says. He hated General Nakasone, and he was kind of quiet about it until about a year after Trump left office, and he just went ham against him consistently. And anytime a news story comes up about General Nakasone, Ezra Cohen Watnick is like, "Oh, what are you gonna lie to Congress about election fraud again?" and all these things. And that was one of the reasons I started to question myself and I'm at the point where I was probably wrong about CyberCom and their role in the election fraud capture of 2020, because it doesn't make sense to me. It's a contradiction. And him and Joshua Steinman, and there's another guy, I don't remember, but Ezra Cohen-Watnick, Joshua Steinman, they were all at the NSC with Derek Harvey and Rich Higgins and all those key players. Bannon, they're part of the hit list squad, and like they're in the know. And so them being so against NSA and CyberCom, and even more so recently, there's a shift to we need to separate these two agencies. And that's what I find to be most interesting. And I wonder if we're actually going to see that. And so I don't think this is connected to Laura Loomer, like you kind of already said, but I wonder if these are other former admin officials that aren't actually in the admin yet. And I wonder if they're the ones advocating for this, because it's a weird switch up and breakup. I don't know if you have any stories you want to pull up on it.
So here's the New York Post story, and this was what when Ezra tweeted the other night in response to this story, this was the article he linked, and it does actually refer to the Loomer stuff in here, but yes, it says the story, the reports came, or those particular firings came after the president met with her. But Mark Warner from the Senate Intelligence Committee immediately jumped on in defense of General Hoff. And I was going through some stuff yesterday for my show about that dual hat problem that they talk about so often.
What are you finding on that?
Well, it was interesting. I'm not to the bottom of this thing by any stretch, so I'm not sure that I have the right take on this, but it's something that's been kind of building for the entire Trump era. So this is from August 18th, 2017. Trump elevates Cyber Command. And so this is when Cyber Command became a unified combatant command. And for the entire time since then, they've had the same person head up CyberCom and the NSA. And there's also been an effort to separate those over the past 5 years. This was from the very end. This was from, kind of that key devolution period, December 2020. And they talk about Chris Miller in there with Kash Patel and Ezra wanting to separate the two, but that would have to go through and get Mark Milley's approval. And so that was one of the things that Laura Loomer had been saying about Hoff and Wendy Noble, I think, but that they were loyal to Milley.
Do you guys know when the NSA and CyberCom actually became attached? Was that in 2017? Was that Rogers? Was he the first one?
Let me pull that Axios article back up. I just realized that I didn't actually put these on screen.
Well, that's fine. Because, I did a little bit of research on the plane. The internet was kind of crappy. But there are a lot of articles advocating to split them up. I'm honestly kind of surprised after reading what I read that it didn't actually happen under the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. Or at least that we weren't told about it.
Yeah. But the whole point of it, like if you look at the Department of Defense, this is under Biden, but they talk about how the CyberCom and NSA helped secure U.S. elections. That's what Nakasoni's saying. But then you counter that with Ezra Cohen-Watnick and what he says about, I think it's just, is it Nakasoni or election fraud? I gotta search for it here.
While you're doing that, he had a couple of tweets just, wait, why isn't this going up? There we go.
Here, this is the one from the other day. Yep. Or not the other day. This is back in September 2024 when NSA Director Nakasoni, or former one, he opened the new institute at Vanderbilt or whatever. Will this training include lessons on concealing information about election interference from Congress? This is a huge admission of election interference from a key Trump era official, violating IC standards on intelligence analysis, leaking to the media, and politicization of the security clearance process, trying to understand the value add. So yeah, it's you counter that with this article, and it's just interesting because it's two opposing viewpoints. The Biden administration says these two agencies helped secure the election. Trump admin says these two agencies helped steal it or conceal it.
Both of them. Interesting.
Could be both.
No, he said, I'm asking. He said both of them? The
Wait,
NSA
what?
and CyberCom?
Well, he just said Nakasone, and he was the head of both. So
Yeah, right. It's pretty interesting. I remember from my former liberal days, the NSA being such a massive story during the Obama administration. It's when we got the Snowden stuff, right, and all that. And
They also one of the crazy things about them is that they share that information with Five Eyes intelligence partners, and of course, Israeli intelligence as well. And so then you have this international intelligence unit surveilling everybody everywhere, and they also have like they're a combatant command, like the same guy is running both things. That does seem dangerous, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I know that it's big in Q world and in a lot of the truth community of thinking that part of what was going on during Obama. I mean, I've even considered the theories of Snowden itself being a deployment in concert with the Obama regime to discredit the NSA, given what could have been going on between the NSA and the Obama regime. But man, it spins out in multiple ways, and isn't it funny? I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but even the dual hat language coding is very interesting in light of everything we talk about in terms of white hats and black hats. Those terms are used in spycraft, specifically in the NSA, and they're calling it a dual hat program. Is that more than just some cute little, is that one side making a shot across the bow at the other side? In which order, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's such a rabbit hole.
Do any of you guys know what CyberCom can't do that the NSA can? Because there's this interesting quote in this Defense Scoop article. Let me pull this up. One of the main refrains in the U.S. government with regard to cyber is that it's the ultimate team sport. Officials have lauded the so-called dual hat relationship between the NSA and CyberCom, which allows the military to benefit from the unique intelligence insights and resources of the NSA. That's an interesting quote. So that's almost the justification for it. But they also talk about
shouldn't the military benefit from them and their information no matter what? Like why would you need the same guy to run both to benefit the military? I mean, the NSA is under the Defense Department.
I don't know. Like here they say the NSA was in an ops center and CyberCom was in a separate ops center, and literally they were separated by a SCIF door. But it might as well have been a world apart, and that's why they put them together. The SCIF door kept them a world apart.
The very general distinction supposedly seems to be between, what's it say, war fighting versus intelligence gathering, supposedly, when it comes to information and cyberspace. So the idea being that CyberCom is about information war fighting, and NSA is about intelligence gathering, which obviously would then be used in warfighting. But I'm wondering if you're asking about powers, difference in powers, that would imply to me that CyberCom can implement actuals in a way that the NSA cannot.
That's right.
Like CyberCom can act on the information that the NSA is gathering, where the NSA probably can't. They can just, observe and report like a mall cop.
Yeah, and it's offense and defense too. That's I spent some time on this yesterday, and that's exactly what the situation is. And so, someone being able to run both of those things, especially if they have full access to all the information, and that's kind of proprietary in some way to the NSA, and they're like, well, the NSA told me, that has the ring of the way that the deep state system generally operates. Privileged information. You're just going to have to trust us. We're doing the best possible thing.
And that I remember when I said the liberal days, that's one of those things where this community can be so calcified about anything liberal equals bad, etc. But there was a time when the liberals were actually yelling about first principles things. And at the time, this was one of them, of talking about the illegal tapping of American phone lines, all that kind of stuff, right? That was what we were told. And now the counter to that is saying that, well, it was the Obama regime that really was putting the NSA on blast at the time. And that's what's the most interesting potential reverse indicator to me of saying, did we have white hat, black hat stuff going on at the time? And in order to get in front of it, the Obama regime was trying to curtail some of the very powers that they had been using.
Yeah, I want to read this tweet from him. I think it's interesting. But first, I want to see if I can get a Rumble ad to work here. Oh, we got a good crowd tonight, almost 23,000. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. We'd greatly appreciate that. Let's see what we got available here. Should we do a Rumble Premium or something?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. 1 second, guys. Okay, I think that showed up on the screen now. This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that is incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted that they fell to the pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the perfect time to join Rumble Premium. And if you don't have the means, we are just happy if you watch us on Rumble and hit that thumbs up.
Damn straight.
All right. Let me share this. This is interesting. So there's this ACLU back when they were attacking Hicks's nomination. And this is what Ezra said. What would the ACLU say if they knew surveillance abuses conducted by DOD elements were going to be dramatically reduced under the transformative leadership of Pete Hegseth? This is like directly going after the NSA here too. Odd that they have remained silent as DOD NSA surveillance of Americans has increased over the last 3 Secretary of Defenses. That would include Miller and Esper? Or no? Yeah, was it Esper before Miller? Yeah. No?
What?
Yeah, it was Esper.
But what's interesting here is I've never heard anybody talk about this surveillance abuses by the DOD. Have you guys heard any stories on that, like ever? Because here's Ezra Cohen-Wannick. Why haven't they talked about this?
Yeah,
DOD
that's interesting.
elements,
I mean,
I guess, could be NSA though.
Well, yeah, he put NSA in parentheses here.
So I mean, NSA is always DOD though.
I know, but we haven't heard any big stories about this, about surveillance abuses in the last 4 or 5 years that I can remember.
Got it.
Oh, interesting tweet.
Yeah,
Ghost, you're gonna say something?
No, we haven't.
That's all I got.
You mentioned that. You mentioned Esper. Like, so are you saying this was happening during Esper's tenure or just during Biden?
Well, he said the last 3 SDs. I'm assuming that's Secretary of Defense's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, did Biden only have one? Biden only have one, so that would be Lloyd Austin, Chris Miller, and Esper.
And who's before Esper again?
Mattis.
That's right.
Mattis. Mad Dog Mattis, right? Well, I mean, Esper, was a total shill. He hated Trump, and so.
Oh, hey, did you guys know? What the hell? I did not know this. Maybe you mentioned this earlier. They actually sent a proposal in to split NSA and CyberCom.
Yeah,
and
right.
I didn't realize that.
I don't know if we said it then, but I figured you had talked about that. Was it 2017?
No, it was 2020. It was like after the election.
Okay.
I never came across this when I was doing my research.
Yeah, December 2020.
Trump officials
it was under
plan.
It was under the 2017 NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, was what they were citing to give them the authority to do that.
I think it's also pretty interesting considering kind of the build out of this parallel information infrastructure. And even when we're talking about an app like TikTok, you know, all their data was moved over to Oracle, I think, in 2020. This was being put in place in 2020. Now we're going to hear about the results of all of that. But as a surveillance tool, these social media apps could probably not be beat. And if we're moving off of the traditional internet infrastructure with all of these various middlemen, like Amazon Web Services, right? Microsoft, Azure carrying the traffic. If that infrastructure is being moved, it could be that NSA is just too tied into all that stuff. So they need to go a different direction. Therefore, they'd have to split off CyberCom to move that along. And I don't know, maybe eventually disband NSA, but
well,
NSA was set up in a secret executive order, by the way.
It's my favorite kind.
When was that?
I think it was 1952.
Of course. This was the exact shit that Eisenhower was talking about. I mean, he's talked about the deep state, or he's ubiquitous in commentary about the formation of the deep state, but he was talking about this and saying that a few months ago, I think I had read part of it on the Power Hour. He wrote a letter to Congress in, I think it was 1958, Eisenhower, talking about the fact that the establishment was attempting to silo various aspects of the military into various compartments to make it more difficult for the president to have access to the information he needed to. So in light of what you just said about the NSA, Chris, it's kind of interesting. I'm sure that's probably one of the major things that Eisenhower was talking about, of saying like, hold on, why is all this information getting sucked up into the NSA? And then where the hell is it going? Why isn't it coming to my desk?
You want me to make your head explode?
Yes, please make his head explode.
So the NSA was set up on November 4th, 1952, right after Truman, right after he became a lame duck president. So on the way, on the way to Eisenhower,
for Eisenhower
coming in, and considering what happened with the subversion of the Trump transition in 2016, 2017, the spying on the executive office of the president, and then everything that happened on the way in this year, which has been strange as far as the information stuff goes. I think that's a really interesting parallel.
But what do you guys think of Rogers? Because I always go back to that clip of he was testifying to Congress, I think, and he was talking about the unmaskings and the requests and the process for it, and basically throwing the deep state under the bus for what they're doing, throwing Obama and Biden and all of them under the bus. I think I even have that clip here. Yeah, I do. Let me play this quick.
So with respect to unmasking, the following.
And even before I play this, I'm pretty sure the consensus, if I'm not wrong, is most people think he's like a good dude, like a white hat. Okay. And I know the white hat, black hat game, sometimes it's dumb to even play it, but I'm pretty sure that's the consensus of Admiral Rogers here.
So with respect to the following criteria is applied. First, for the National Security Agency, we define in writing who has the authority to unmask a U.S. person identity. That is 20 individuals in 12 different positions. I am one of the 20 in one of those 12 positions, the director. Secondly, we outline in writing what are the criteria that will be applied to a request to unmask. In a report, and again, part of our process under 702 to protect the identity of U.S. persons as part of our minimization procedures, when we think we need to reference a U.S. person in a report, we will not use a name. We will not use an identity. We say U.S. person 1, U.S. person 2, U.S. person 3. That report is then promulgated. Some of the recipients of that report will sometimes come back to us and say, I'm trying to understand what I am reading. Could you help me understand who is person 1 or who is person 2, et cetera? We apply 2 criteria in response to their request. Number 1, you must make the request in writing. Number 2, the request must be made on the basis of your official duties, not the fact that you just find this report really interesting and you're just curious. It has to tangibly tie to your job, And then finally, I said too, but there's a third criterion, and that is the basis of the request must be that you need this identity to understand the intelligence you're reading. We apply those three criterion, we do it in writing, and one of those 20 individuals then agrees or disagrees. And if we unmask, we go back to that entity who requested it, not every individual who received the report, but that one entity who asked for us. We then provide them the U.S. identity, and we also remind them the classification of this report and the sensitivity of that identity remains in place. By revealing this U.S. person to you, we are doing it to help you understand the intelligence, not so that you can use that knowledge indiscriminately. It must remain appropriately protected.
Okay, so everything you just said right there, I bet this is what's going on. The NSA, if they're going to unmask somebody and like follow somebody, they have to report it up the proper chain of command and do all these things, and there's a report on it and all these things. I wonder if the military does it. They don't have to do that stuff. Like that doesn't have to become public knowledge, and that can be used as like, oh, we're protecting the homeland, and so none of your business. Right. You know what I mean? I bet shit like that's going on.
This all spins out. Not that it wasn't happening before this, but again, former liberal days, it all spins out from the in the interest of national security stuff that kind of came out of the Bush regime, the Patriot Act, etc. Man, I can't get the Eisenhower stuff out of my head. And I'd found the segments. He had written a letter in 1958 to Congress, but really, in my view, in the view of a lot of historians, it was about communicating to the American people the threats of compartmentalization of the U.S. chain of command. We talked about this last year. He said, as a result of well-meaning attempts to protect national traditional concepts and prerogatives, we have impaired civilian authority and denied ourselves a fully effective defense. We must cling no longer to statutory barriers that weaken executive action and civilian authority. We must clear command channels so orders will proceed directly to unified commands from the Commander-in-Chief and Secretary of Defense. The number of headquarters between the Commander-in-Chief and commander of each unified command must be kept at the very minimum. Each additional level courts delay, confusion of authority, and diffusion of responsibility. So, you talk about them, that they prepped the battle space, to Chris's point, pre-Eisenhower, and then that's what he was dealing with throughout the whole thing. Like he's trying to get the information that he needs to make decisions when he needs it, and drats, there's just so much bureaucracy for him to get through, and he just didn't know which piece under his command he was supposed to ask for, highly important information. So all this stuff has been a way for the agencies to not just silo information from the American people, but specifically from the president.
Guys, I gotta show you something. We are 308 followers or subscribers away from 200,000 right now.
I feel like we could do that right now.
That's what I'm saying. So if you do not currently follow this channel, do us a favor and help us get over 200,000. That'd be amazing. So hit that follow button or subscribe. I don't even know what it is on Rumble. Following. Be appreciated.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Completely ignored everything Bernie Bright said, as I usually do.
Yeah.
To make that point.
The people got it.
But I'm sure it was good.
Yes.
I'm sure it was great.
That is interesting, though. Like everything that you said about Eisenhower and Truman, you have to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure there's a story about like Truman's daughter being threatened, and that was some sort that was a control mechanism over Truman. Fact check me on that, but that has to do a lot with the stuff that he did in the late 40s. That also means I didn't know that about the NSA, Chris. That means that Truman created both the CIA in 1947 with the National Security Act of 1947 and the NSA. And the big difference between those two, as I understand it, is that the CIA is a mafia that traffics children, traffics drugs, overthrows governments, murders people, does all kinds of terrible things, like the worst possible things you could imagine.
In the name of democracy, he goes. Jeez.
In the name of preserving democracy, and sometimes that means abolishing democracy altogether and just killing everybody, and then just starting over from scratch. But yeah, I mean, it's that's the foundation of the latter half of the 20th century. So
well, and if you continue that timeline, it's interesting to think about Truman and what you just said, Eisenhower, who coined the term military industrial complex, and then who came after Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, who had a lot of Marine loyalists, etc., and then famously wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, right? So we've got Eisenhower, who coined the term military industrial complex, and coming right after him was a guy who apparently tried to destroy it. And we saw what happened there. So I've in the last year or so, I've really started to see a lot of synergy between Eisenhower and JFK coming into the present. I would argue that the two administrations that Trump is echoing most firmly is Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy, and he is telling you that himself as often as he can. Eisenhower model, he's all of his policies are JFK policies, like literally almost every single one of them is a JFK policy. So
He got
seems
shot
like we
in the
kind
head
of,
like JFK.
I mean, yeah, so
He
it's
talks
just-
about Lincoln more than anybody, though.
I'm not a fan of Lincoln.
Wow, racist. He defeated slavery, bro.
By murdering
Speaking of
countless
defeating
Americans.
racism, I got to hang out with both of our African American Badlands hosts in Nashville, surrounded by white girl wasted sorority girls.
Nice.
And I could just feel the racism being defeated. So shout out to JB White and Cam. It was a great weekend seeing both those guys. And Ty was there too. Ty and all his friends, Ty and JC. It was a fun weekend.
I think that we should make this a thing. People have been sprinkling subscriptions all over the stream tonight. Micro tool makers sent out like 100 of them.
Jeez.
And I think Counterinsurgents and Starborn and a bunch of people just dropping Human. It's
You guys
crazy.
are awesome. Thank you. And we are currently,
what's up, Hugh?
We are 293 away from 200,000 now.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that Salt Bay can be our
Subscriber bay?
subscription bay. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Salt Bay
All right.
punches through.
Do you guys have rants? Because I certainly don't.
I got
I
it.
wasn't here.
The Abe Theory says DPH for $1. Thank you.
Hey,
Micro.
hold on. That's the guy
he was.
who made your hat.
Oh yeah. Well, shout out to that guy. That hat rules. Wait, we should pull up a picture of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, Chris, how did you like my meme hat? And Chris will pull that up. Micro Toolmaker, $117. President Trump loves America almost as much as God does. Where we go on, we go all. Thank you, Micro. Always supporting.
Thanks, Micro.
12 Indie Boy, hosting a watch party in Nashville. Our like was number 333. Jackie Espada pointed out how that is for personal growth, creativity, and optimism. Can't wait to see what's next for Badlands.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ty.
Thank you.
Oh, Jackie sang at the karaoke some CeeLo Green. She nailed it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really?
Nailed it.
All right,
Tell
Jackie.
people we only associated with Cam.
Pressure's on
Jackie.
for Plymouth then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Team Bomb. Unfortunately, truth, proof, and law don't always ride in the same cart for $10. That's correct. T Wordward 216, $20. I live outside Nashville where John was this weekend. What a weekend he picked to come to Nashville. We've had bad weather the entire time he was here. Gart needs to come to Music City. Love y'all.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
Hey.
a couple things about Nashville, by the way. Go ahead, Gus.
Did you hit the Abe
There's a
Theory
way.
21 $2?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this is
Ghost-
Abe's hat.
So awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
there you
Ghost
go.
is on like a
Follows
local weather channel delay tonight.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real bad.
It's I'm like
What's the
deep in
rain look
country-
like,
I'm
Ghost?
Deep in the country right now.
Okay, but yeah, that was my experience in Nashville. I was on an Airbnb on the top floor. There's like super old building, and it rained. It was so loud. All night long was tornado warnings on my phone. Like, when you get the Amber Alert on your phone, some old dude drove off in a silver Audi or something, and like, keep your eye out. It was that warning all night long for tornadoes. So didn't sleep the first night. The second night, then it was nothing but fire sirens because I was apparently right next to a firehouse. And then last night, I went home early to like, okay, I got to get up early, go to, leave. My flight leaves, and I couldn't sleep at all. I was like paranoid I was going to miss my flight. So I got like no sleep this weekend. But there's another point I was going to make about Nashville. I can't remember what it was. Somebody said something. It'll come to me.
I mean, all
Those
you do-
emergency management signals, man, that shit's so messed up. They just
So
condition you. Like in the liberal cities, it's all the time. They'll just tell you, oh, there's weather that's going to come in. It could be like this over here. So we need you to adjust. And it's like, you just scared the living shit out of me by making my phone create that sound.
So loud.
Chris, they're going to wake up the normies with the emergency broadcast system.
Go ahead, Ghost.
This could be a stupid question. Stupid question. If you
No
put
such
your
thing.
phone on Do Not Disturb, do you still get the emergency warning?
My phone's on silent 100% of the time, and I get them.
I threw my phone at like the brick wall, and I still got the warning. So there's nothing that stops
So
what's
if you
coming.
put your phone
when
on
it comes to
silent,
these
like,
things.
are they going to warn you that you're about to die? You know, it's like, I don't know.
Keith O'Higgins says, according to the Carrot Museum, original carrots were purple, a royal color, but carrots dating to Egyptian times were black and white. I think the black carrots would be big. I'm not going to read the rest of that. Anyway, Radiant Seas, $10. Blessed Saturday, Mr. Paul, Mr. BB, Mr. Cormick, and all Badlanders. May Father God and Christ Jesus be with you all and family. Bless everyone. Godly protection, good health. Have a great and joyful weekend. Thank you.
I do remember what I was going to say. So yesterday we went on this tractor ride thing where I don't know how this is legal. Like they have a tractor that pulls like this bus around and people are just drinking on it and loud music, but it's just driving all through town and it's somehow legal. But one of the tractor guys that was a driver, he was like a Badlands fan. Like his name was Matthew.
Wow.
He recognized me and then he came out with us afterwards. It was super cool. It was super based, younger. It was awesome.
Sick.
So shout out to Matthew.
I think we're big in the
DD you
tractor
home on the
driver
tractor?
scene.
No, I hope he didn't drive home because he had a few cocktails.
Hey, John, you missed this at the beginning, and I want you to have an opportunity.
Yes.
Yes. So this is the so-called king with his very, very creepy hands. And this
What
is
going on with those
Well,
hands?
he joined a performance by the London Vegetable Orchestra.
Is he allergic to vegetables? What?
Imagine being fucking British. Ever.
This is real life, John. This is actually happening. Welcome to reality.
If my kids don't come home with a carrot recorder from school next year, whenever they get their recorders, I'm gonna be real disappointed. But why are his hands like that? You don't know what recorders are?
What you're talking
Oh,
about.
dude,
That's like a thing.
That's an old meme. There's something going on with his like snowman fingers. It's widely speculated that there's something going on there, and it's not good. It's bad news bears.
I don't think it's not much speculation. Like there is something wrong with those hands. But Bernie Brett, how do you not know what a recorder is? Did you not play recorders? Chris, did you play recorders growing up?
What that is?
Yeah, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that was like
definitely.
just part of school.
Yeah, everybody does that.
Hot cross buns, bro.
Recorders?
Hot cross buns.
Yeah. Burning Bright. You probably have some weird Boston word for it.
Ricotta.
Yeah.
They were just making us fight in the
I thought that was my
when I
friend
at school.
Ricardo.
All right. Patrick J17. God bless you three gentlemen. 3, not 4, John. What a great show this will be. Nice meeting you, Chris, in Vegas. I should have stuck around longer and met Ghost and BB. Yeah, Patrick. The hell. John Henry Bonzo.
Patrick.
Stephen K. Bannon, the maestro. Post Niz, DPH is definitely a 3-person show, possibly 4, particularly now that we're obviously well into some form of COG, whether Devo or not. A conversation for DPH needs at least 3 participants. Keep Ghost.
Mind your business. That's all I'm
Yeah.
going to say to that.
Mind your business.
Well, when we need to talk about the Jews, we will bring Ghost on. No, he's been doing great filling in. Okay, this is the recorders. Hot cross buns.
1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, make it stop.
Okay, but that's like
Burning Bright,
great
you have
schools
no
across
idea what
America.
that is?
I've never seen
You've
that
never seen
before.
that?
What
Is
did you
that-
do?
I have no idea what those are.
Dude,
I've never seen
he
one
must
of
have been
those.
homeschooled. He probably was homeschooled.
No,
played
we
the
probably just
skin-
were
he
too
played the skin
poor.
flute
My
instead of
school
a
had the
recorder.
same windows that it had when my dad went to the same school. So
I love the delay on Ghost.
1027 JS says, thank you. Great way to spend Saturday night for $20. Keith O'Higgins, BB spurging out on Bessent. Does BB know he's gayer than elections? Me or Bessent?
Both.
I don't know. Boom Diggity sends
interpretation of that one.
Boom Diggity sends $300 over. Such a great show, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to experience this golden age and most excellent timeline with y'all and all of Badlandia. Thank you very much, Boom.
Thank you, Boom.
Thanks, Boom.
She's one of those that's subscription bay. We could call Boom Diggity subscription bay herself.
She let off the show. She let off the show with a ton of subscriptions as well. Melindy, Ursula is what we dodged with HRC. True. PJ Corrigan, $20. This has got to be the single greatest episode of DPH ever. You three amigos really pull off a spectacular episode. Bravo. Chef's kiss. You guys really outdid yourselves tonight.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I hate you all. But yeah, I'm sure it was great. I'm sure it was great.
Op or not, we'll take it. Snack Cakes 802, $20. So information. I follow all of the Badlanders and many others. I hated history in my Detroit school system. Never believed it or was interested. We were outside until the streets missed the 80s. What a whirlwind of a rant.
I think it was probably supposed to be so much information.
No, I much prefer so information.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a lot out of you, Snack Cakes, in that one. 2812, John goes to the rough side of town, basement bars, and former bombs and gunshots.
Yep.
What did you hit Honky Tonk Row? So cool. I was wondering.
Is that Broadway?
Who knows? But I was wondering why you were just like sketching it up in Nashville rather than just doing regular people stuff.
It's Ty's people. Well, so one of the days we did go down like Broadway or whatever. We were like hitting that up. We got to this bar, like this upstairs part of a bar, because in Nashville, like every bar has like 14 different levels and secret doors. We went to the top of one, and there's this band there playing, and we were the only ones. There's 4 of us in there watching, and we were the only ones in there, and this band was like playing for us, and they were super good too. Jake Taylor or something. Got to get him for Gart when we do down there. But yeah, we did do that.
Did you go to a honky tonk?
I don't know what you mean when you say that, so I don't think so.
I don't know what a honky tonk is, but I'm very.
There are these massive bars where they have like live country music playing.
Well, that's every bar in Nashville is live music.
He was just
why don't you explain to me what you think a honky tonk is?
He was just hoping that you knew what one was, so you could tell him. Like a recorder.
I don't know.
Do recorders record the sound? Is that why they're called that?
No.
All right. Well, that's stupid. Asshole. John looks like a young kid pretending to be their dad. Probably that. Oh, I love that. You look like a young kid pretending to be your dad.
Chris.
John in Connecticut, how do you get people to focus on Israeli influence on U.S. government than to pull a judo move and give it more obvious attention like anti-Semitism laws? Can't be blamed for being anti-Israel with that.
That's a ghost question.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely subscribe to the theory that we're leaning into it. We're leaning into the thing to bring more attention to the issue. So, but it's worth noting that I mentioned Adam Bowler earlier. Adam Bowler is Jewish. Steve Wickoff Jewish. And so it's a Zionist
18 months ago, 18 months ago on the DPH, we said that the Israeli situation was a Kobayashi Maru that Trump was catching them in. And then Elon Musk plagiarized us a year later.
Wow.
We said the same thing.
Because we were the first ones to ever use that term.
Specifically about the Israeli situation, seeing as it happened, like we said it the day after it happened.
Yeah. I was making a joke, Rainbow. Don't get offended.
He also copied John's Treasury take by retweeting some other guy who said it.
Yeah, that was
the other day.
Awesome, though.
Almost word for word. Yeah.
On target.
MC Ryder. Hey, John, welcome home. I tried to become a monthly supporter and it said, please enter a valid credit card. I triple checked the numbers.
Yeah, we try not to take fraudulent credit cards, so I use real ones.
You know what?
I am curious though. Hold on, I am curious if that was on Rumble or if that was on like a Badlands website. Because if it was on Rumble, that's nothing we can really do. Why don't you just enter in your?
It's a spam and dollar rant. Should I read all of them, or I have a policy against that?
Against what?
Spamming dollar rants.
Who was doing it?
Keith O'Higgins. What's your policy on it?
It's up to you. Hey, you're reading the rants tonight, so that's up to you. I personally love Keith O'Higgins, and I'm a big fan and appreciate his $1 rants.
I love him too.
But if you don't want to read them,
spam.
You can read this one. You can read this one because he's asking me a question, and I can answer his
Ghost.
question very, very quickly.
Hey, Ghost, do you think the Jewish James Bond will accompany Netanyahu? It would be cool if they pulled up a new Israeli sports car.
No, because Yossi Cohen was accused last May of threatening the ICC prosecutor who brought the charge against Netanyahu, and then he announced in June that he was not going to go into Israeli politics, and he extended his 2-year contract running Israel's operations at SoftBank, working for Masayoshi Son, who is, I love saying that name. I can't say that name enough. So he's working for Masayoshi Son, which is interesting. But yeah, he's talking about Yossi Cohen, the Israeli James Bond. So,
oh yeah,
isn't that what they say in Karate Kid?
Masayoshi-san,
Rosioff or whatever, something.
Masayoshi-san.
See why we
Dude,
don't do
Masayoshi-san, I love that
Ghost
name.
explains everything about Israel after every dollar rant.
He's
So
a
it's like me,
thesaurus.
but worse.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say worse, but just different.
At least I rant on multiple subjects, not just the Jews. Villas 34. Since we're talking NFL, do y'all think Aaron Rodgers was injured, then traded just because he talked vaccines? What about Rodgers' politics? Is he a good guy? I think he's a bit of a little bitch. He's a weird guy, and he did the same op where he said super based and red-pilled things, but never supported Trump ever publicly at all. There is one NFL player who has ever done it before 2024, and it's Tom Brady. Suck it. He did it. He did it before he even ran. So not a single other NFL player ever did it.
Rodgers is going to the moon this year as a Steeler, and he's also, I think, pretty based. One of his like close friends actually listens to my show. So
no way. Which one?
I'm giving Aaron Rodgers a thumbs up. Well, you're not gonna know.
I'm a Vikings fan, and I respect Rodgers. So we were talking about this weekend. I don't remember who. Me and JB were talking sports for. Okay, I finally got to experience what it's like to be a black person as well. We were at a restaurant at the bar. I was sitting with JB, and we ordered our food, and like an hour and a half later, we hadn't been served yet. Like they didn't bring the food out, and Ty calls and he's like, "Hey man, we gotta go. Where you at?" And we're like, the bartender was like, "Oh man, I forgot to put your order in." I was like, "JB, this is what it's like, isn't it, man? I'm so sorry." But we just left and got food elsewhere. But no, I got to talk sports with him for an hour and a half, and I think me and JB are gonna do a sports talk show now.
No kidding.
No, we didn't talk about that, but we could because it was that good of a conversation.
This was actually them at the bar.
Can I get you something?
Some mofo butter laying me to the bone, jacking me up. Tight me.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Cuddy say can't hang.
Oh, stewardess, I speak jive.
Oh, good.
He said that he's in great pain and he wants to know if you can help him.
All right, would you tell him to just relax and I'll be back as soon as I can with some medicine.
Just hang loose, blood. She's gonna catch up on the rebound on the med side.
What it is, big mama? My mama raised no dummies. I duck a rap.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
You've never seen Airplane?
I have a long time. I don't remember that clip though.
Great film.
All right. We'll have to do it on Story Hour. Post Miz, the new show should be Badlandia. We came up with the name last year to describe those of us fans of Badlands, or just use the Badlands logo over any version of the spelling of friends. No bad friends.
Yeah, we gotta settle on a name for that Tuesday show because Bad Friends is already a thing, I guess.
Yeah, there's some comedians that have that already.
Yeah.
Cucked comedians. 2812, very literally. John took a bounce of a ricocheted bullet off his head. That's why the goofball hat.
No, I just haven't showered in like 36 hours.
Ziggy Girl, has Badlands done a breakdown on the U.S. debt clock? If not, will you consider it? Thank you. There's a lot of debt. Tons
Well,
of
the
it.
debt clock, it has zero association with. It's just like if we put a website up that guessed what the debt is right now. That's what it is. There's no official association.
It's actually
No, it's not.
signaling to us. James Klain, why is everyone so up in arms about tariffs? Trump said it will get worse before it stabilizes. It's just common sense. Just so frustrated with the left not wanting to change. Love you guys for $20. Talked about that the whole first half of the show, so hope you liked it. The Meerkat, $20. Wow, great show so far. The new Devolution Power Hour trio. You all better stick with it until I finally make it to Deadwood. A whole school start date was changed, so I won't miss it this time.
Nice.
I think Deadwood's going to be big. Are those on sale yet? Do we put those on
They're
sale?
on.
Oh,
we're putting them on sale for ticket holders to Plymouth only. I don't remember.
I was told it's also for digital ticket sales people.
Don't be careful.
Well.
Be careful.
Yeah, careful. Don't put your foot in your mouth.
How much trouble you can get in if you.
Yeah, that's true.
Put forth wrong
I don't
information.
know, but I think if you have a ticket to Plymouth, your chances of getting the page for Deadwood is high.
Much higher.
I think they're.
I just imagine the baby monitor and like the glowing eyes show up on the baby monitor right now.
Yeah.
Her head completely turns around.
He's sleeping. This past week was rough, fucking rough. But he's sleeping right now. Q fan addict. Nigel's a lone alpha with the biggest balls in Europe. I watched Brexit real time. He hadn't realized he'd won until it truly was over. Having endured the fake news ridicule all night, he was euphoric and smashed. Nice. Mrs. Real Freedom Fighter, great show. Thank you so much for $10. Q fan addict with another one. I'd never seen the clip played earlier and loved it when Nigel said in the Trumpian fashion, "We don't want you. We didn't vote for you, and we want you put out to grass." Based. And then last one, true deplorable. John, I remember a memorandum you showed us that CIS, Security for Elections, entered into an agreement to use CrowdStrike's cyber software. What's up with that?
Sure did. Hasn't been changed yet. Go to my part 11. At the way bottom, I have an example of that contract.
Do you want me to get Saturday boosts?
Yeah, get the Saturday boosts. Yeah, right here. Right. CrowdStrike running EDR services on behalf of the EIISAC. And they're in every election machine. Over 2,000 or 3,000 precincts or counties or something. I don't remember.
I don't know if you guys read these. Butters, $68. Love me some Chris Paul. CP's doing the ruthless, unapologetic, tough love thing. John does the shoot from the hip, big coconuts thing. I know you both have big hearts of gold. You both also work so well together. You're obviously over the target.
Nailed it. Nailed both descriptions of both of us, I think.
Nice. Drin name only, $50. My name's Michael Cloud. He's the real. My rep is Michael Cloud. He's the real deal. Doesn't even have a DC residence. I'm working with his office to introduce him to tacticalcivics.com.
We read these.
Oh, okay.
We read this.
Yeah, those last week. Yeah.
Okay. Patriot Christologist. If pain could change what you know, it would make you corruptible, which would be sad. Part of the Brett Bear interviewing Trump. This doesn't make it true. At the same time, conning followers will not easily reject their influencers. Mr. Chemo sent $100 over with no rant attached. He did that to a few shows. And then, so thank you very much, Chemo. And Rocky Top Papologist said, John, great meeting you in Nashville. You and JB White were very gracious to the folks who came out to see y'all.
Okay, is Rocky Top? I played some guy in darts and I kicked his ass a little bit.
Oh.
I don't remember which. I don't think that was Rocky Top. Yeah, that was fun. Anyway, okay, we do have an outro video, but I do want to read one more Rumble Studio ad. Do you guys want to do positive or be naked? That sounds interesting. Because those are only two options. So
let's get naked.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. If it loads. Okay, in today's society, it's tough to be a man in a world dominated by overly masculine liberal women. That's just not how it's meant to be. This is tough out there. Everywhere we look, it's gender neutral, this product, or made for her, that product. That is why we started a company that embodies the ethos of men's lives matter too. By the way, I've never read this ad before, so we're all in for a surprise here. With products that aren't designed to be gender neutral or used by people with pronouns, our products at Rumble are designed and built for men by men, period. So if you struggle with low energy, mood swings, or hair loss, or if you need to perform better at the gym, maybe in bed and recover quicker after, throw out all other garbage supplements and try animal organs. They are traditionally I can't do it. They are traditionally the most nutrient-rich supplements on the planet.
You didn't see that coming?
Did not see that coming. It took a weird turn.
Yeah.
But our bison organs are a step above. The grass-fed, non-vaccinated bison are a species where the weak are allowed to die and only the strongest survive. So here's our commitment to you from men who have real confidence in their products. Try this today, and if you don't like it, fine, return it for a refund. Go to benaked.com, code studio, and get 15% off today. That was
what
interesting.
A journey.
Yeah.
No one ever expects
How do
animal
I?
organs.
No.
Yeah, right.
So out of left field, like what? By men, for men, animal organs. That's all we can make. Oh, so funny. Okay. We got an outro video from Chris here. Oh, I gotta find it now.
The greatest celebrationist in the history of the NFL.
It's worth it.
Is this AB?
And Tom Brady enthusiast.
Yes. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Sorry I missed most of the show, but great job, guys. Best trio ever.
That's true.
Love you all a long time. And make sure you guys, if you're not following now, to follow, because we are about 270 away from 200,000.
Ghost will, I believe, be joining me tonight on The Narrative, 9 p.m. Eastern on Rumble. We're going
Tonight?
to talk about stuff we haven't even decided yet, but I'm just going to say it's going to be all about the Sovereign Alliance. We're going to do it. We're just going to go in dry.
Raw dog.
Bite the pillow.
Yep.
Yep.
Good luck, you two.
Tax
Good luck on your raw dogging journey.
Yep.
All right. Well, hit that thumbs up. What a great way to end the show. We'll see you guys.
Brown has it. Touchdown, Pittsburgh. You're seeing two in the 500th catch for Antonio Brown, and you're seeing two of the very best figures. Touchdown. Oh, my God. Well, that'll draw a flag. I swear, you'd almost see that coming. Antonio Brown is back there. Pass to the end zone. Pull down. Touchdown. Antonio Brown for the second time today. To come out with this play. Has an open target. It's Brown. And he's across for the touchdown. Antonio Brown. 7-yard score. Roethlisberger in zone. Antonio Brown touchdown. Antonio Brown, spectacular catch. Touchdown. Wow. To his own man, but maintains his balance and struts into the end zone. Kirkpatrick covering, and down he went. 63 yards, sliding, throwing, touchdown. Again, a ton of time, slides to his left, and that enables Antonio Brown to get free. Did he hang on? It is a touchdown for Antonio Brown. And he's in for the touchdown off the ricochet. Antonio Brown has got the Steelers touchdown. Now going deep. He's got it to Antonio Brown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
It took him a while to get to it, but Isaiah Oliver's out of the lineup.